It is on this.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the April 1st, 2025 meeting of the Logan Municipal Council. Our opening ceremony this evening, do I see Karen?
She is here.
Okay. Oh, Karen, here you are. Will be given by Karen Flessner.
Darling.
Excuse me, Darling.
Yeah.
I have to do this. I'm sorry. And if you'd like to come to the podium and share what you have to say, we would appreciate it. And then when you're finished, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Simons, Mayor Daines, council members, for this honor and this opportunity to be here. Hello, everybody. Please rise. Let us recite the Pledge of Allegiance to our God and country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would like to invite Mayor Daines at this point to declare May 1st as the National Day of Prayer. Mayor Daines.
Great. And every year, Karen makes the request for a proclamation for National Day of Prayer. And just a bit of history, it was established by the United States Congress in 1952, and it proclaims the first Thursday of May as a National Day of Prayer. And in our city and across America, the observance of the National Day of Prayer will be held on Thursday, May 1st, 2025, with the theme, Pour Out to the God of Hope and Be Filled, based on the verse in Romans 15:13, that is a prayer and a promise. Now may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that you will abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. That's just a portion of the proclamation. The rest is online. And Karen.
Amen. The National Day of Prayer Task Force exists to mobilize unified public prayer for America. And we believe that prayer to our Lord God Almighty holds the ultimate solution to all our social, cultural, economical, educational, political, and personal issues. So we invite everyone who is called by God's name to set aside some time to humble ourselves, to pray and to seek God and turn from our wicked ways. When we turn from our wicked ways, God promised that then He will hear from heaven, He will forgive our sins, He will heal our land. When we seek God in prayer and repent from our wicked ways, then He promised that now His eyes will be open, His ears will be attentive to prayer offered in this place. His people are encouraged to be people of prayer. Before God, each of us are encouraged to make requests, intercessions, and give thanks for everyone, especially those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. For this is good and pleasing to our God, our Savior, who wants all people to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. Will you please join me in prayer? Father God, we thank you for who you are. We acknowledge that you are our God of love, hope, joy, and peace. We ask in Jesus' name that you will fill each council member and everyone in the city of Logan with your love, hope, joy, peace, in believing so that you will abound in the hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Lord, pour out your love, hope, joy, and peace to all the people in the city. Fill every council member with your holy presence and wisdom and discernment as they make decisions about the well-being of our beloved city, Logan. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. We'll move now to the acceptance of the minutes of our last meeting and the approval of the agenda for this evening.
I would move acceptance of the minutes and approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Would those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our 2025 regular meeting schedule is the first and third Tuesdays at 5:30. Our next meeting, boy, we had April Fool's and Tax Day this month. So it's April 15th. Item 5 on our agenda, we have an open mic opportunity for people who have questions or comments for the mayor or the council on anything that is not on the agenda. If you care to share a comment, please come to the podium, state your name, where you're from, and take 3 minutes or less.
Is this okay? As it is correct. My name's Russell Goodwin, and I attended your Parks and Rec open house or meeting the other night and picked up the trails map. And noticed on here in what's identified as cliffside open space. Up on cliffside, there's a little rectangular piece of property attached to the cliffside open space. And that is a vacant lot on cliffside that was held out at the insistence and behest of former and late council member Logan Bracken, as he was a wise man and a man of vision. And he saw a time would come when we need to have access off a road access off the cliffside. And he intended that that lot would be the entryway access point off of cliffside down the Canyon Road. So I'm here to remind you of Lynn Bracken's vision that we might someday complete that road. The parts that's missing in our transportation mix is a north-south arterial on the east bench. And as you commence your Canyon Road water initiative, and there's a cliffside extension of that water pipeline, I suspect it's going to get to cliffside through this area I'm talking about. I urge you to consider perhaps laying groundwork or surveying or identifying a possible route through there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm not sure. Is this the appropriate time to speak on the energy proposal?
No,
Oh, okay.
that'll be later.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Gail Hansen. I live in Logan, and I'm here to speak about a general principle of decision and action making. I'm going to take you on a little time travel journey, so imagine that there's occasional sound effects of harp, you know, and stars swirling. So come on this journey with me. My dad raised cattle and a little bit of alfalfa and timothy down in Kanab. We didn't get sprinkler pipe until I was in high school, so the irrigation was done with ditches. I'm informed that's called gravity flow. I call it ditches. You could stand or sit and watch during your water turn and turn over a shovelful of mud if it were needed to open a channel or close a channel or repair a breach in the channel. Or you could go into town, get a cup of coffee, and come back when your turn was over. But sometimes, because you weren't there to turn that shovel and repair that breach, you'd find a new knee-deep gully in your field. Timely action is more effective and less expensive. The air temperature was forecast to drop to 18 degrees Fahrenheit overnight before rising to 26 degrees at 9:38 a.m. Cecil Houston, the manager of the Kennedy Space Center office of the Marshall Space Flight Center in Alabama, set up a three-way conference call with Morton Thiokol in Utah and the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on the evening of January 27th to discuss the safety of the launch. Morton Thiokol engineers Roger Bourgeois and Bob Edeling argued that they did not have enough data to determine whether the rubber O-rings of the solid rocket boosters would seal at temperatures colder than 53 degrees, the coldest launch of the space shuttle to that date. During this discussion, Lawrence Malloy, the NASA's solid rocket booster project manager, said that he did not accept the analysis behind this decision. Do you expect me to wait until April for warmer temperatures? Morton Thiokol employees Robert Lund, the vice president of engineering, and Joe Kilminster, the Vice President of the Space Booster Programs, did recommend against launching until the temperature was above 53. 30 years later, Evelyn's daughter gave an interview to NPR. This is taken from NPR's report. The morning of the launch, a distraught Evelyn drove to Thyakal's remote Utah complex with his daughter. He said, "The Challenger's going to blow up. Everyone's going to die." And he was beating his fist on the dashboard. He was frantic. Serna, Evelyn, and Beaujolais sat together in a crowded conference room as live video of the launch appeared on a large projection screen. When Challenger exploded, Serna says, "I could feel Dad trembling, and then he wept loudly, and then Roger started crying." Time travel is seductive. We could go back and change the course of history, but as a practical matter, our option is only to make decisions now, decisions that set the course of history. Early action is more effective and less expensive unless it is the wrong action. Thank you.
Is that mic adjustable?
It works just the way it is.
Okay.
When
Meaning
you
not
speak
well.
into it,
It's hard to hear.
it doesn't move.
Hi, Matthew Patuesi. I live here in Logan. I'm here to present a talk from UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres from September 2022. If you remember, this was still in the time when we cared about COVID, recognized it for the deadly virus it was, and responded accordingly, something that is now reserved for business owners and city council members. So before I get into what General Secretary Antonio Guterres said, I would like to emphasize that your status as city council and mayor is not to represent some hedge fund's abstracted profit margins. It's to represent the people knowing that they need a thriving world to live in and truly feel alive. And that can't be done with the looming threat of anthropogenic climate change of human origin. I want this to emphasize that any action you feel barred from carrying out on the country, state, or federal level should serve as motivation for you to go down to the Cache County building, the Utah Capitol building, to Washington, D.C., and advocate for what is right and achievable, not what is harmful, but promises next time we'll get it right. Think of it as an opportunity. So, without further ado, the fossil fuel industry is feasting on hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies and windfall profits while household budgets shrink and our planet burns. Excellencies, let's tell it like it is. Our world is addicted to fossil fuels, and it's time for an intervention. We need to hold fossil fuel companies and their enablers to account. And that includes the banks, private equity, asset managers, and other financial institutions that continue to invest and underwrite carbon pollution. That includes the massive public relations machine raking in billions to shield the fossil fuel industry from scrutiny, just as they did for the tobacco industry decades before. Lobbyists and spin doctors have spewed harmful misinformation. Fossil fuel interests need to spend less time averting a PR disaster and more time averting a planetary one. Of course, fossil fuels cannot be shut down overnight. A just transition means leaving no person or country behind, but it's high time to push fossil fuel producers, investors, and enablers on notice. Polluters must pay, and today I am calling on all developed economies to tax the windfall profits of fossil fuel companies. Those funds should be redirected in two ways: to countries suffering loss and damage caused by the climate crisis, and to people struggling with rising food and energy prices. Remember, this was 2 years ago, and yet more of the same. We, you, me, those in this room, and those too busy getting by to show up, need you, the mayor, the council, the legal and financial advisors, and the secretaries, the committee chairs, all of you in elected and appointed positions to open your eyes, realize how dark things are, and know your eyes will adjust. But they never will if you never open your eyes. Open them as soon as now to the problems, the solutions, and the desperate cries for immediate action that burn in front of you. Those cries that say they would rather die than let you pay for more poison that our youth will have to breathe. Anyways, that's it. But I also have a little April Fool's joke inside of the script for that too, if you're interested in it. And an article about our school as well, because we also have other problems aside from environmental issues, like racism being spewed inside of our schools and being upheld by children.
Okay, I'm going to remind everyone to read the back of your agenda. There are some rules of decorum that we like to keep to within our meetings. And one of them is we don't clap, we don't cheer, we don't jeer, we don't boo, we listen, and it allows us, the point of people speaking publicly is for us to be able to hear what they're saying. So if you would please abide by those rules, we would greatly appreciate it. Sorry.
No, you're all good.
Josh Molitor.
Yeah, Josh Mulder. Anyway, I was thinking about it. I missed that UDOT meeting. I really regret missing that UDOT meeting. But the more I learn about it, the more I'm wondering if those guys were smoking crack when they were thinking about a lot of their solutions. Honestly, yeah, I'm kind of floored with some of the stuff going on with that whole thing. And, yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say, so.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
Quite interesting.
Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment at this point in time? If seeing no one, I will bring it back to the council. Mayor, it's your turn.
Good. I am delighted tonight to introduce our new library director and to ask the council for ratification, as we do with all directors. Michael, please come forward. We'd also like to acknowledge his wife, Mary, that's here with us tonight, and welcome all our members of the library community that are here to support Michael. Just a little bit about him. He's a highly experienced librarian and technology manager with nearly 3 decades of experience in the field. He comes to us from DoSpace, the country's first community technology library in Omaha, Nebraska, and he has presented it. He's developed and delivered training programs for libraries nationwide, empowering librarians and patrons with essential digital skills, and has presented at numerous conferences and shared his insights on technology trends and best practices. And he's also a prolific author. I could say much more, but with that brief introduction, we welcome him to Logan and to the library, and I would ask council for his ratification. Amy, as a member of the library board, was on the selection committee when we interviewed candidates, and we had some great candidates, and Michael was selected. So
I would enthusiastically endorse ratification of Michael Sowers.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Would you like to say anything?
Nobody told me about that.
You have 3 minutes or less.
I can do that. I just want to thank everybody. I started last week. Everybody I have spoken to has been absolutely wonderful and lovely and accepting of me here in Logan. I've enjoyed all 4 seasons several times in the last 2 weeks. And I look forward to leading your library in the future. So.
Awesome.
Thank you very
much.
Yeah, thank you.
we push and talk about
That's appropriate.
I thought we weren't supposed to do that.
That's appropriate.
But we can do it.
All right, now item B on the agenda, we have a number of board reappointments. We have many great citizens who serve on a number of our volunteer city boards, and so we have some reappointments to Historic Preservation Committee. We have Jason Pond and Joe Needham. To Planning Commission, we have David Lewis and Ken Hare. Our Land Use Appeal Board, which only meets on very seldom occasion, but that's Amanda Davis. And then the Parks and Recreation Board is Sylvan Needham. So I would ask council to ratify those reappointments.
I'll move for ratification as presented. Thank you, Mayor.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much. Item C on the agenda. We are delighted this evening to welcome Leanne Powell, who is the director of the Utah Recreation and Parks Association. We are receiving a nice award from her. She's come all the way here to present it in person. So I'd like to invite her to come forward and present that, and ask all of our park staff that are here to maybe come forward and receive that. So, Leanne? And Russ, yes, all of our staff that are here.
I can go.
Leanne asked me if I wanted to say something first. I don't always get that choice. I'm proud and privileged to be with our executive chair from the URPA and not distilling more thunder to introduce her to you.
So Mayor Daines, Councilwoman Simmons, City Council, thank you for allowing us just a few moments to celebrate a little bit about things that are going on in your community and your great Parks and Recreation staff. As you mentioned, my name is Leanne Powell. I'm the Executive Director of the Utah Recreation and Parks Association. We represent about 1,900 Parks and Recreation professionals around the state of Utah. And I really feel like our Parks and Recreation folks are our unsung heroes in our communities. They're working every day to create and maintain spaces and provide programming where we can all connect and thrive within our communities. So I feel like they're all doing great work. I would invite you to maybe take a moment and just think about what a community like Logan City would look like without parks, without playgrounds where children are playing and laughing and having fun and growing and learning, without walking paths, winding through nature, teaching us about the importance of conservation and the natural things, no ball fields, no special events, no community events. What would our communities look like? I would say that for most communities, Parks and Recreation are the heart and soul of our very communities. They're the things that bring our communities together, that we can celebrate one another, we can bring people from all diverse backgrounds and really connect on a human level and make our communities better. So I just appreciate the great work that your Parks and Recreation Department is doing. I'm sure not everybody here knows this, but Logan City is one of 215 agencies within the whole United States that's CAPRA accredited. There's only 2 in Utah, Logan being one of them, and they were the first and kind of led the way in our state. And what that kind of assures your community is that these folks here are doing all of the best practices in all of the ways to make sure your parks and recreation and open space and trails are being created and maintained at the highest levels. So they are doing excellent work, so I think we should always show our gratitude to our Parks and Recreation folks that are doing such a great job. Each year, as we do a statewide conference in March, and leading up to that conference, we take nominations for all sorts of different awards and for professionals and programs and facilities. This year we had over 100 nominations, and we get our past presidents all together, and they carefully go through a book of about 150 pages. Russ can attest to the book that they have to go through and look to really try to figure out which are the really high quality facilities or programs or professionals that should be rewarded with these honors that we do. And so I'm actually here tonight to recognize your Carol and Jim Law Plaza as our 2025 Outstanding Facility of the Year. Oftentimes I get asked what sets apart, one facility from another, and a lot of it's about design, and a lot of it's about the vision and the innovation for those spaces. But even more of it is about the programming and things that can happen within those spaces and being able to bring, again, communities together, people with diverse backgrounds where it can really be like the cultural epicenter of a community. And I was talking to Mayor Daines a little bit about kind of the revitalization of downtown, and I think this will certainly be the hub for that revitalization and a place where people can gather and celebrate and be together as a community. So on behalf of our 1,900 members and our past presidents committee, it's my honor to award you guys with this outstanding 2025 Outstanding Facility from URPA.
Thank you. And thank you to Julie, Dan, Resakina, and then Deb Harvey over here who's taking pictures. Again, we have great staff, so thank you very much for the award. We're honored.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work.
that to you. I'll steal that. I didn't even put my glasses on to look at it. And maybe we could get Debbie to come up.
Yeah, come on over here and take a picture. Yeah, if you want to.
Right in front.
Yeah.
You like the two?
Debbie,
You're supposed to be in the picture.
Now you have to be in the picture.
it's Mike. Mike, it's always Mike.
Just take the photo. Just take the photo.
It's always Mike. Just make sure you don't get up.
I think you could do a great job. To defer.
Thank you. We appreciate that very much. And the next item on our agenda is we will have some information about Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we have actually Jill Anderson, the Director of CAPSA, who's here tonight to present that.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm Jill Anderson. I'm CEO of CAPSA, which for those who don't know is our local domestic violence and rape crisis center. Last year, CAPSA served over 2,496 individuals, with over 30% of those being survivors of sexual violence. As the mayor mentioned, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so we're here tonight to highlight that. We know that supporting survivors of sexual assault is about advocacy, healing, and breaking down immense barriers that survivors face. Think for just a minute about the barriers you've seen or assume survivors face. Too often, barriers such as shame, fear, lack of resources, societal stigma keep survivors from reaching out for help. In CAPSA, we ensure that survivors have access to confidential support, legal advocacy, and trauma-informed care. And most importantly, we do not do this work alone. Through education, outreach, and partnerships with healthcare providers, law enforcement, local businesses, government leaders, all of you, and you as council leaders, together we strengthen the networks that both prevent violence in our community but support survivors toward healing. We need the community, and we need all of you, businesses, educators, civic leaders. Each of us has a role to play in shifting cultural perceptions, fostering belief and empathy, and ensuring survivors know they are not alone. One of the biggest barriers that survivors face is shame, a painful and isolating feeling that tells someone they're flawed or unworthy. Shame doesn't just impact survivors of sexual violence, it can affect anyone struggling with mental health, online harm and violence, or self-doubt. And too often, it's shame that keeps people silent. Recognizing this, one of the things we want to highlight tonight is that CAPSA has developed a prevention-focused curriculum called Shame-Free Conversations. The purpose of this curriculum that we've designed is to help adults supporting youth by navigating these difficult conversations, difficult topics in a way that fosters openness, trust, and healing. These conversations prevent violence and harm while also reducing feelings of helplessness and fear when harm does occur. A shame-free conversation is rooted in empathy, understanding, and acceptance. It's about choosing words that make people feel safe and heard, rather than ashamed or dismissed. To help guide these conversations, we use an acronym, and I'll share just a little bit of this curriculum with you, but we do want to encourage it as a way for people to reach out to us and help us provide these presentations into the community in the circles that you're involved in. But the framework that we use is SAFE, and it stands for S for specific, be clear and direct in your communication. A is approachable, create a safe and welcoming space. F is feelings, acknowledging your own feelings about it as well as those that you're talking to, the youth you're talking to, validating emotions and experiences, and empowering. E is empowering, focusing on strengths and solutions. And in this curriculum, we teach attendees the skills that they can use to walk youth or others in their circles through these conversations. And above all, it starts with belief. Because when someone shares their experience, believing them is the most powerful first step we can take. As a community, we can create safer spaces and break cycles of shame. But programs like Shame-Free Conversations and all of CAPS's prevention and response services depend on support from our community. Funding from businesses, donors, and community partners allows us to reach more youth, train more leaders, and ensure survivors always have a place to turn. So I want you to think about who in your circle, your schools, your businesses, youth programs could benefit from a deeper understanding of how we have these meaningful conversations. Thank you for letting us come highlight April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month, share a little bit about our services, and highlight this prevention education program that we have available to the community. It will take all of us to stop sexual violence in our community, and we encourage you to join with us in that effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate the good work you do at CAPSA. All right, the last item is just an update on green waste. Many of you may know that as of last year, Logan stopped picking up just the piles of green waste that would be put out curbside, but we do provide an alternative if people want to bring them to some drop sites, so Paul is going to address that.
Good evening. I promise we're discussing spring cleanup. That means spring is coming.
Hey, it's blue sky out there now.
What's that?
There's blue sky out there now.
There you go. So it's there now.
For 10 minutes.
And you've probably seen, we did a press release a week or so ago, and we've also done some social media posts to try and get the word out. But the intention is we will have large roll-off bins where folks can deposit, Logan City residents can deposit green waste from their yards or whatever, and then it will be picked up and taken to the green waste facility. There will be, this year, we added an additional location, especially on the west side, because with the construction on SR30, it can be hard to navigate and make it to the landfill right now, or the green waste facility. The 5 locations will be Lundstrom Park, Hiram Gibbons Mount Logan Park, Merlin Olson Park, Bridger Park, and then near Willow Park at the Quad in that large parking lot. Those bins will be available from April 14th through April 25th, a 2-week period, where that green list will be, and then as they're filled, they'll be hauled off and replaced with empty bins. If at all possible, we ask folks to make sure the green waste gets in the bin, and if it's full, let us know so we can change that out. Again, this is completely separate from the curbside green bins that the environmental department picks up on a weekly basis. But in addition to that.
And one thing that we've done to encourage people to use the green cans, because that's easy for them, they don't have to haul it anywhere, we lowered the price for Logan residents from $5 a month to $4 a month. So again, if you can just put a little in at a time, you don't even have to go to the landfill, because we have now instituted a charge for green waste at the landfill this year, so.
And they're already picking those up.
Yeah, green cans.
And all that information is on the Public Works website under the Streets Division, I believe, or we can get it to you if there's another way.
Good.
Will you post the phone number of where to call if the bin is full? Is that possible at each of those sites to have some signage that, because you said if you see it's full, if you could let us know, is there a way to put a sign?
Yeah, we're trying to work with the environmental department, put any pertinent information like that up there.
Okay.
So our citizens can also rent a green waste roll-off dumpster. Because I did that last fall, and it saved me a dozen trips to the landfill.
Yeah, if you have a large quantity.
We had a large quantity, and it was going to take a truck and a trailer about 10 or 12 loads, and we just got that big roll-off dumpster, and it was awesome. Just disappeared the next day.
Great. So
I'll take credit for that.
Yeah.
I had to fill it all up, but it disappeared the next day. It was the best. Saved me hours.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to have to tell Marilyn.
Honestly, it saved us hours of work.
Okay.
And with that, that concludes my mayor and staff report, so thank you very much.
Prior to moving to council business, I see people milling around outside. If they'd like to come in and find a seat, that would be great. There's some up here in the front.
The splash zone.
It's the eyeball zone.
There's enough buffer, like SeaWorld.
No splash zone.
Thank you all for coming. It's wonderful to see people here interested in city business. Council business, first item on the agenda is Planning Commission update. And I can, with my help from Russ Holly, because he reminds me what exactly happened. They downzoned a piece of property that we had upzoned for a particular, so that it could comply with the surrounding property that was right with it. But we had downzoned the entire block. So that was a downzone that went through. There were 4 short-term rentals that were approved. One was on 160 West, 600 South. Another one was on 276 East, 900 North in the Adams neighborhood. Fairgrounds House short-term rental, 391 South, 400 West in the Woodruff neighborhood. And the Garvert rental is at 363 East, 800 North, also in the Adams neighborhood. There was Naylor Construction requested a conditional use permit for some outdoor storage of equipment. There was a discussion about the wetlands that were adjacent to his property or part of his property, and he will go through the Army Corps of Engineers to find out which parts of that he can not store things on. Schreiber Foods is doing a yogurt expansion. It was a design review permit, which was approved. There was Brian Siemens is doing 14 new residential units at 70 Hillside Circle, which is just under the hill in the Adams neighborhood in the campus residential zone. And Chase Bank requested a design review permit for a new building on the corner of 4th North and Main on the empty lot. There were some concerns with respect to it is zone TC1 and not all pieces of the plan were precisely compliant. So they are continuing that till May 22nd. And beyond that, every week, every time we meet, some of us give a report on what we've done in the last month, so I'm going to let Mark go first.
All right. My boards, let's see, golf board met last week, and we discussed a new building and upgrades to the driving range that were actually quite exciting. We discussed a potential new crosswalk at the driving range because it's kind of a dangerous location, so Public Works is going to examine that and see what needs to be done there. And men and women's associations are starting up, and they've got some really cool activities going on, some really fun things. So if you want to participate in men and women's associations, they have some great activities, and I would call it legal gambling is what they're doing. They have like all kinds of prizes.
With a golf ball.
Yeah, it's just like, it sounded like a lot of fun. So if you're interested, I'm sure they will get you the information. Historic Preservation meets next week.
Yes.
Economic Development meets next week. Light and Power did not meet in the last month, and Solid Waste did not meet. So I had a pretty light month, so not too bad.
I attended Airport Authority Board meeting. We continue to work through the suggestions from the consultant on how we can better run the airport and make it more profitable for itself and more safe for its users. I went to CMPO meeting, executive meeting, which is the Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization. That is the group that works through countywide roads and does a lot of safety work and visioning on how best our transportation network can be expanded and improved. I went to, there was an air taxi that was brought into the Logan Airport, and I went to that demo, as did a lot of us.
Electric.
It is an electric air taxi. Well, it's not an air taxi yet, but it is an electric airplane. And surprisingly enough, it you know, you don't think about it, but it was very cool. It can hold two adults in the front cockpit and 1,400 pounds of cargo at this point. It has 5 batteries and has a 350-mile radius. Rotation speed is 70, and it takes off in 3,000 feet. So there you go. And you can't hear it at all. Once it sounds like a big fan, and then it's gone. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I attended with the mayor and members of the community development interviews for a new candidate for planning commission. I also attended, which is not related to my position here necessarily, I went to the spring runoff conference. I also sit on the Cache Water District Board, and that's what we do is the spring runoff conference. It was really, really very good. And there was a big celebration for the 60th anniversary of the Water Lab. And if you have never been to the Water Lab, you should go. If you can get a tour, because they can run the entire flow of the Logan River through the building.
It's very cool.
And they can do experiments, and they can adjust flows, and they can, you know, have different size pipes, and it is really pretty fascinating that they thought of and instituted that 60 years ago.
And built it right over the river.
Pretty
cool.
We all participated in CDBG, which is, we act as the board for that. Those are funds that we receive from the federal government, and we accept applications based on the criteria, and we meet as a group and evaluate those criteria and give recommendations. That will come to the full council shortly. I went to Planning Commission, and with all the rest of my crew, we attended the Chamber of Commerce Awards banquet last Friday.
Sure did.
So,
It was a very not busy month for you too.
yeah, it was a not busy month.
No,
Not busy.
always have some.
So, we will move now to our action items. We have 3 public hearings, and our first public hearing is regarding dispatch service fees, Resolution 25-11. Christy, would you mind coming to the podium in case we have any questions? You did a wonderful job doing our workshop last time. Could you just, for the audience, talk about how many people are in the 911 center and how you are funded?
So right now we're funded for 20 positions, but right now we only have 15 of those positions full. So we have 5 that we're working on hiring, and we did interviews actually just yesterday. So we're looking to fill those positions, and then our funding comes from utility fees. If you look on your utility bill, there's a 911 dispatch fee that's on there, and that is, right now it's a $3 fee. And then there's also a 911 fee on each one of your cell phones as well, and that's how our funding comes into us. We are also, we have the ability to apply for grants, and which we try to get as many of those as we possibly can to help us. Those funds cannot be used for wages, however. So the utility fees and the cell phone fees are what we use for our wages.
And Chrissy, do you know off the top of your head, I'm sure you do, how many calls you handled in, say, the last 6 months or a year?
Oh my gosh, I don't know off the top of my head. I run out the numbers all of the time, and but I'm trying to think. We do about 116 calls per day. I think that's right, if I remember correctly, off of the ones I ran the statistics, but I'm happy to provide those.
The packet you sent us said 58,000 calls in 2024.
Yes, that's per year, but yeah, so we're at,
So divide that out for
we
6
kind
months.
of tried to do a comparison where we were about 10, 15 years ago to where we are now, and we're taking about 20,000 more calls a year than we did back in
How many operators do you have on staff
Sorry.
at any time? At any one time, how many operators do you have?
Oh, okay. Our minimum staffing is 3. So that's our very minimum during our very slow times. But we generally have 4 at most of all the time.
Do you have a slow time?
Yeah. Nights, depending on the nights. Weekend nights can be busier than weekday nights. Also, when it's a nice, quiet snowstorm outside, it can get pretty quiet in there. Yeah, everybody just kind of calms down and stays in their house. But, I have all of those statistics if anybody is interested in them. I'm happy to give you, busiest times of the week and of the year and things like that. So,
And they
when
do
it's warm-
dispatch for the entire county. They'll be asking all the other 19 cities in the county for the same increase. And they dispatch for Utah Highway Patrol, for Utah State University, and they do get some revenue from those contracts as well.
That's correct. I forgot that. That is some of our revenue as well for those 2 agencies that aren't tied to a city or a utility.
Yeah. So to have that going 24/7, 15 is kind of like pretty low.
It is. Well, normally, we're funded for 20 right now. We were funded for 21, but we gave up that one position to give those emergency raises back in November. So I'd like to get back up to that 21 and be able to fully staff it. Right now, the dispatchers are working 12-hour shifts. So it's difficult, it's hard. So they work 3 12s and a 6. So.
When was the last time that we raised these rates?
The $2 fee that was implemented in 2002 has not been raised, so that was 23 years. And then the $1 fee that was implemented for the radio fund, which is separate, was implemented in 2013. So it's been 12 years for that one with no adjustments on this at all.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This is a public hearing. If there are any members of the public who wish to speak to the small increase, 30 cents, and the 911 fees, please come to the podium and state your name and take 3 minutes or less.
And tell us if you've called 911 before. I'm curious. I want to know who's used it.
Matthew Pontuesi, live here in Logan. I'm all for pay raises, especially for anybody that's getting less than the cost of living amount. I wish we would also be able to go through like tax increases for the people that aren't needing that money. Or anyways, intersectionality is very important, so they take a lot of phone calls. So I would say listen to the things that are currently going on, like with CAPSA. They serve a very important place for that situation as well. So I just want you to take this seriously instead of making sarcastic remarks that CAPSA is a state issue going forward. And then, just pay raises are great. I would say that we should do that for everybody that works part-time, full-time, and especially 12-hour shifts up right now. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Matt.
12 benefits too would be great.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the council for a decision.
I'll move approval of Resolution 2511.
I'll second the motion.
Darn.
You two are too fast today.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our second public hearing tonight is the consideration of a proposed resolution authorizing and approving a Power County Power Project sales contract at a 15 megawatt amount.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't have a presentation. I feel like you're well informed, but I would answer any questions if there are.
Does anybody have any questions? We have had presentations and a lot of discussion about this particular project since December. But if anybody has any further questions, I'm positive Mark will answer them for us.
In the presentation that Tyson gave us a couple of weeks ago, it showed that there was a solar project that was a 10 megawatt solar with 5 battery backup.
Yes.
Is that still a possibility?
Yes.
Is that looking okay? That was one of the projects that actually looked
In fact, due to subscription in the Power County project, other entities have, since they've gotten power from that project, they're looking to drop shares in the, we call it Fremont Solar.
Sure.
And we're looking to try and pick up more of that if we can.
Awesome. Sounds good. But it also showed that there was really nothing in the pipeline that was viable for the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, we have one geothermal that's in process now. Fremont Solar.
For how many megawatts with this?
We were able to get 3.
3.
Yeah, so it's a pretty small, but it, everybody, of course, wanted a piece of that. So
Exactly.
it thinned out rather quickly.
That was the geothermal or the Fremont?
The geothermal.
Geothermal.
Yeah.
Is that, which one is that one?
It's none of the, like, it's none of the names you've heard in the news. It's a, I can't remember the name.
Was it one of the ones that was on your original list? Or?
Yeah, I've got it on my list. I didn't bring it. I apologize.
Thorm
Or Matt? Ormet?
Or Matt, that's it.
And we have also asked you and the mayor to do a feasibility study on a minimum 15 megawatt solar installation within the city of Logan on a site or multiple sites with battery storage, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you guys are working on that, and
We are.
we're going to bring that back in July, was that correct?
July 5th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the presentation that Tyson and Nathaniel did a few weeks ago, I believe they shared that currently our sources are 64% fossil fuels, 22% renewable, and then 40% market. Does that sound accurate to you?
I mean, it's close. That target moves on a daily basis depending on what's available and what the city needs. So it shifts all the time, but that's, sure, pick a day and that's probably correct.
So a few years ago, I feel like we were considerably higher in the renewable, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. What has happened since then?
Well, Mike Taylor, who sits on the renewable board and on the power board, did kind of a analysis of likely power to be purchased on the open market by Logan City. And a majority of that power that goes through the exchanges is Northwest wind and solar and hydro. So he made a guesstimation that there was a certain percentage of that in addition to our percentages. I think at the time he was thinking we're right around 45 or 50% renewable with that calculation.
Well, and part of it, we used to get quite a bit more power from the hydro out of the Colorado River Storage Project, correct? And with the drought, that number's gone down? Or has that come back up a little bit the last year?
Well, yeah, that depends on the year. We had a real dry year, and then we had a really heavy snow year. Of course, the dry year we got not as much hydro, and then the year after the really snowy year we got quite a bit. And this year's snowpack is pretty average, so we look to have fairly good hydro production this year.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
One more. I understand we have not been able to get more communication with Fervo Geothermal in the recent past. Doing a little bit of research, I understand that they've been approved for up to 2 gigawatts of production where they're working down in Beaver County. Can you tell us more about what's going on over there?
Same thing that you read in the news. We were in communication with them both on kind of a project outside of the UAMPS umbrella and also one inside of the UAMPS umbrella, and they just disappeared. I mean, we assumed that they went to California for better pricing. I don't
That's
know.
a geothermal project that we were trying to buy into.
I don't know of anybody in Utah that's going to be able to offtake power from that project. Certainly none of the UAMPS entities, which is...
Why is that?
I don't know. You'd have to talk to Fervo.
They don't want to sell to us.
I mean, we were engaged and we were in talks. We'd signed letters of intent, and then they just disappeared.
The initial letter of intent was for how many megawatts?
On the project outside of UAMPS, we had 10 to 12 megawatts, and the one inside UAMPS, I feel like we were only able to get like a 5 megawatt share of the project.
But UAMPS isn't talking to them either, right?
No, they were in negotiations with term sheets and power purchase agreements, and then they just stopped communicating.
So when was the last time we were able to communicate with them?
8, 9 months ago, maybe a year.
So Mark, I don't know, could you just, for my benefit, and maybe for people in the audience, just kind of review the whole issue with EDAM, like what that is and why we kind of.
Just a little short and sweet.
Because I think,
In 60 seconds.
I've gotten questions as to, we thought that we had settled this idea, and I think there's people who may not understand.
Right, I will
what
say that Tyson, a couple of meetings ago, gave a really good,
Really great job.
review of it.
Yeah.
Basically, EDAM stands for Extended Day Ahead Markets, and currently, we're not in that type of a market. We have our resources and we figure out what we need, and if we don't have enough, we buy it on the open market. Under the Extended Day Ahead Market, I think the idea is that you communize more of the power that's available in the Western grid. So under this new market that's going to be implemented, I believe, next year, entities, load-serving entities, which is what we are, will have to come to the Extended Day Ahead Market the day before with enough resource to cover what your forecast is plus 15%. There are penalties associated with that if you don't come with that amount. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. So.
And the penalties on the shortage, right? The gap?
Correct. Yep, correct. And the idea is that you can't come into the market really short and somebody else has a bunch and you just rely on them to provide your, they cover all the capital costs and whatnot for resource, and then you just come in, oh, we don't have enough, we'll just buy yours. So I think that's the idea behind it.
What kind of penalties are we talking about?
I don't know what those are. I haven't heard any numbers. That's still being negotiated between the market and FERC and Rocky Mountain Power.
And the reason we participate is because our transmission lines are Rocky Mountain Power, correct?
Well, no.
Okay.
Yes, I know what you're saying. We don't own the transmission. Rocky Mountain Power owns the transmission, and they are the transmission provider for a majority of the state and several of the surrounding states. And they are the ones that have decided to participate in the Extended Day Ahead Market. And as a load-serving entity in that transmission area, we're automatically part of it.
Yeah.
It's not like we have much choice.
And if we don't have enough capacity, then we don't get to play.
Well, we'll play, but we'll pay.
We'll pay. Yeah, we'll pay for it.
And when they calculate it, each type of power counts towards that EDAM. So
correct.
Solar or wind is at 30% of what its potential capacity is in terms of the calculation of what we have available.
Yeah. That's correct, or in that neighborhood. I mean, it's associated with its capacity factor, right? Your solar is on when the sun's on, so that's about 30% of the day. So it's worth 30% of that towards your Extended Day Ahead Market power. And other resources are different depending on where they are.
So if our peak load is 100 megawatts and we don't have 100 under contract, then we pay.
115.
Yeah, if we don't have 115, because you don't have 115.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I don't know what the magnitude of those penalties are yet. They're still working through
The
that.
penalty is not on the peak, right? It's on the base load.
It's on what you're short
Yeah.
for that day usage.
Regardless of peak.
So right now, for example, we're running about 60 to 65 megawatts a day. And, if we come to the market with 30, we're 35 short. But of course, we won't. This time of year is pretty easy. Days are cool, not too cold.
It's in the summer.
Plenty of sun.
It's in the summer.
Summer and winter.
That's when the prices go up in the market too.
Any other questions for Mark at this point in time?
There's no tax money that's used for this type of project, correct? It's all from the enterprise fund.
Yes,
And I think,
this is ratepayer money.
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one reason the council was interested in reconsidering a smaller amount is that it at least covers the base load that we'll be losing when we have some projects retiring in the next few years. So we have some coal retiring. Again, what we're reconsidering is, do we go 15 to 18 megawatts to replace, the 18 megawatts would replace what will be gone when Hunter, the coal, goes down. And obviously natural gas is, about 60%, better than coal. It is still a fossil fuel, but it would give us some base load to consider, so.
I just don't think a lot of people understand this comes from the enterprise fund, it's not coming from the taxes. And so when we purchase that power, it's like we're paying for the project by purchasing the power, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that we have not been in communication with Fervo for 8 months or so. The news that I shared with the council said that this 2 gigawatt permit was awarded back in October. Do you have any sense that that could be a different scenario if we reached out to them again?
I don't have any sense. I don't know. I don't know if anybody at UAMPS has reached out. I know the outside UAMPS project that we kind of sort of had going, I could probably reach out there and see if there's any response.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Just as a point of clarification, this is for the natural gas line item, yes?
Yes. We haven't opened the public hearing yet.
Okay. My name is Asher Schroeder.
We haven't opened the public hearing yet. It's our time still, so, yeah.
So does anybody have anything they need to discuss before we open the public hearing?
That's a good question.
Nobody?
I think we kind of asked Mark all the important questions.
Yes, I think we've all spent a lot of time on it.
So this is a public hearing. We have had one already on this particular topic. So for this evening, comments will be limited to 2 minutes. I would like you to come, state your name and where you live, just whether it's Logan or wherever. And just limit your comments to 2 minutes. And remember our point here is to be civil and to listen to each other. So if possible, if there are people who are against the project and people who are for the project, I would like them to alternate, because it gives us the opportunity to hear both points of view. So, you may come to the podium.
Now it's your turn. No, I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Yeah, and just remember, we have the rules about applauding. Please.
Before I begin, could I get some help with the Wi-Fi, please? My speech is on Google Docs.
I don't know. Do we have anybody here?
I say Jeff.
Do you want to just use my phone?
And do you want to let someone maybe go first while you log in? Is that possible?
I'll just connect to my mom's hotspot. The majority of my speech is already loaded in.
Okay.
I would also like to humbly request that, as I have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, I would like my speaking time to be extended to 3 minutes to account for any communicative delays that may happen during my speech.
Do your best.
Do your best.
again, if you'd like Jeff to have you help get logged in, we'll have you can come right up after that. We could have someone else be speaking mainly while you get logged in.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Hi, council members. My name is Mary Ann Christian, and I'm from Logan City. And I'm going to try to read loudly. In 2016, 2 student-led environmental clubs from Utah State University and Logan High School encouraged the Logan City Council to pass a resolution supporting policy and activities which address air quality and climate change. The resolution called on the city to move to a more efficient and economical energy future based primarily on clean, renewable forms of energy and transition away from fossil fuels. With overwhelming support from youth and the community, that resolution passed unanimously. My children were a part of the student groups who led the effort almost a decade ago. They were deeply troubled to hear that the city is considering entering into a proposed natural gas power project and power sales contract that would lock our community into fossil fuel powered energy for years to come. They shared, rejecting the plan is a perfect opportunity for the city to make good on the commitments it made to youth and the community for a sustainable future almost a decade ago. Signing on to a long-term commitment to fossil fuel energy source will mean missed opportunities to take advantage of affordable, reliable, clean energy sources in the future. This is not the right call for our community. Thank you.
Sorry. My name is Asher Schroeder. I'm an undergraduate student at Utah State University and a resident of Hillcrest. Good evening. I'm sure I speak for most of us when I say that we're not exactly happy to be here again. I would like to begin by recognizing that the city of Logan exists on the unceded lands of the Shoshone-Bannock tribe. Indigenous communities have long been at the forefront of defending natural spaces, and in times like these, we must turn to and amplify their voices to understand how we can make peace with the environment that we now share. As we reflect on the roots of this land, I think of my own family's history. I am a 6th-generation Utahn. My family has lived here since 1851, when my 3rd great-grandfather, Henry Grow Jr., joined the Latter-day Saints settling the Salt Lake Valley. He built the Salt Lake Tabernacle, and along with millions of others, my family built Utah into what it is today. I refuse to see their work squandered by short-sighted vision. We have a chance to change, to redress the harm that our ancestors caused to Utah's original inhabitants and to its land. The situation is already dire. Last February, the planet reached 1.5 degrees Celsius for 12 consecutive months. The IPCC estimates that as of today, we have only 4 years and 111 days to slow warming and match the 1.5 degree goal. Any more will set off tipping points. In my mother's life alone, the Great Salt Lake has halved, exposing elements like lead and arsenic to our air. They have combined with other sources to ensure that our air has never met federal pollution goals. There are also financial risks inherent in this project. Global investments are shifting rapidly towards renewables, and when natural gas prices soar, the sun will still be shining as bright as it was yesterday. We hit a milestone in 2020. For the first time, our nation generated more power from renewables than from coal. It's up to us to keep that trend going. The most prominent effect of climate change is its ability to cast a shadow on the future. Denial turned to uncertainty, uncertainty to panic. And yet, from my earliest years, I was told that my generation would be the one to save the world. I have believed those words my entire life. But now, I must ask you a question that has been a long time coming. Why do you keep shirking your responsibility onto us? How is it fair that my 9-year-old brother is left to spiral into anxiety attacks, wondering if there will even be a tomorrow? Why are we expected to clean up the messes of those before us when there is work that can be done today? My emissions last year were 6 times lower than the average American. I own an EV. I eat local. I buy offsets. I come to these meetings and I speak for the trees. but I can only do so much. If you refuse to act, there will be nothing left for the children to save. We elected you with the expectation that you would guide us into a future that we wish to see. And I speak for everyone in Logan when I say that we do not want this plant to be constructed. If you choose to ignore us, we will remember. If the council permits, I would like to close with a brief moment of silence in remembrance of the 5 million people who died globally from climate-related causes last year. I yield my time.
Is there anyone that would like to speak for the project? Please come forward.
I'm gonna wait to hear what everybody said.
There's more than one.
So Scott Nelson, I'm with Shriver Dukes. And just want to speak for a business that uses a lot of electricity. Don't have a speech prepared, but we are probably the largest electricity user in the valley, probably. And we feed everybody. That's one of our of the benefits of making cheese and things like that. But back in September of 22, we weren't able to generate enough electricity or supply enough electricity, so we had to go out on the open market, or Logan did. And that resulted in about a $90,000 a month surcharge for us as a business. So that's $90,000 that's going outside this valley because we had to go buy it on the open market that didn't get to stay in the valley as far as feeding our families and contributing to our internal or our valley network. And so as a business, we have to use a lot of electricity, but we're making something that's good for everybody. And if we don't go out and get fossil fuels, we don't have enough. It's been proven. There's not enough sustainability in in wind, solar, hydro. I mean, Mother Nature's fickle, and we proved that back in 22. And there's no snow, then we're not going to get the hydropower that we need, and we're going to have to go out on the open market and buy it. As much as we would rather turn everything over to Mother Nature and do no fossil fuel, and that would be our ultimate goal, we just know it's not possible. And if we continue to say we're going to only do that, we're going to be shutting businesses down and not being able to supply our valley and our local businesses particularly. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Charles Ashurst, and I thank the council for a couple of minutes. There are a lot of reasons I really love Logan. One of the reasons I'm affectionate for Logan is that in the year 2008, both the city of Logan and also our household started on a positive goal of moving towards clean energy. And we both made a lot of progress, and we both still face a lot of challenges ahead. And I'm not saying that our households makes me an expert on energy, but it has shown me that there's definitely two sides to this question. We've made a lot of progress, but we also see the holes that are still remaining. But will soon be, I'm really confident with the holes will be filled within the next few years. Like, for example, at our household, we get 2/3 of our yearly electricity from our solar panels and batteries. And this is after we switched from gasoline and natural gas to all electric appliances. So we're using a lot more electricity, and yet we're still generating 2/3 of our own electricity. But I have to acknowledge that 1/3 still comes from the utility, and some of that utility still is fossil carbon. And I just want to point out that the big hole in our little project at our household is called winter. And that's where we import massive amounts of electricity from the grid. And we could plug the whole, I think the next project, we've had a lot of projects over the years to become more efficient and more solar powered. And I think the next one is going to be to try to super insulate our house. And we've already put in extra attic insulation. And, but I would like to get our home to, a really super high standard of insulation. And I'm wondering if maybe that could be part of a broader solution, if we could somehow encourage businesses to work on retrofitting older homes to a higher efficiency standard.
So you've taken your 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
It's very admirable, Charles. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Murray. I've lived in Logan for 8 years. Thank you, City Council, for serving our community. Also, thanks Light and Power for your commitment to keeping the lights on. I know you guys take that seriously. And I want to thank the City Council for considering solar and battery capacity. But I'm here once again to urge you to make the right choice and reject a 30-year investment in fossil fuels, even if it's a reduced commitment. I've never felt more proud of the democratic process than I did in January when 4 out of 5 of you made the right call. And I've never been more disappointed when I heard you're considering reversing that decision. In January, 36 people stood up and offered you dozens of reasons of why this is not a good idea. The most important and obvious reason to me is climate change. Climate change will continue to impact our economy, our water supply, our ag sector, our health, and our quality of life here in Cache Valley through reduced snowpack, summer droughts, heat waves, increased wildfire risks, pest invasions, and air quality impacts due to ground level ozone. Beyond climate change, folks brought up a lot of other valid points: the volatility of the natural gas market, the financial and safety risks associated with ownership of a power plant and power lines, and the potential for leaking a greenhouse gas that will be 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide during the lifetime of this power plant. The current administration is trying to walk our country back years in terms of climate mitigation and adaptation, but we do not have to be a part of this. This is our city, our economy, our health, and our future. We can figure out how to meet our baseload demand without tying ourselves to a 3-decade investment in fossil fuels. We have smart people in Light and Power, we have RESAB, and we have many constituents ready to be part of the solution. Other cities are leading the way, and ours can too. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wants to speak for the plant?
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute.
There's someone coming.
I'd be glad to speak for it. I appreciate, I don't know that.
Please tell us your name and
My
where
name
you're
is
from.
Greg Noir, I live in the Cliffside area. I think most of you know who I am. I have not seen anything in all the discussions that can tell me how we're going to stage ourselves when our coal power plants go offline and we lose the base load that we need. We don't have a source for that. I think all of us want to go to projects that do not impact our environment like we've had with coal plants. The step towards that would be to go to a natural gas plant. I think that is a huge step forward for us to be able to do that. And we don't really have that source. We talk about, geothermal. When we have California paying 10 times what we're willing to pay for it, to get the geothermal, we can't compete in that market. We do not have reliable solar. We do not have reliable hydro. You can't build a hydro project. I think everything we need to realize has a pollution potential to it. What are we going to do with all these batteries? We haven't figured that out. Our state's saying, well, let's go towards nuclear. You got nuclear has its problems from the standpoint of what do you do with disposal of the materials afterwards, but you also have to impact on the environment and gathering your basic materials. We know in the history of our own state the impact of trying to mine uranium. These things are all got their problems. And this one does have its problems. Nobody's sitting here saying it's environmentally clean. It's much better than what we have. And if we really want an economy in Utah and in our city to grow, we've got to find a source for that power and not just build it on the idea that, well, it's going to come. People are going to come. Yeah, it may come. It's going to come at a huge price if we have to compete in that market. And we know what it costs to have to go into an open market. We've had that experience. Schreiber's shared that with us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lizzie Belmont. I'm 15 years old and I live in Logan. And I'm angry. Why are we here once again? Why is this being brought back for consideration? Where has our system gone so wrong that dozens of people can get together and plead with you, the reflections and representatives of our society, to make the right decision, to protect the future of us all? And once the right choice is made, it's brought back once again for reconsideration. It's truly horrifying that this is the point that we are at. Weeks ago, this plan was brought to the community's attention, and we told you how we felt. For hours and hours, we expressed our utter disagreement with this plan. Our opinions and feelings have not changed. I, at the very least, stand here in the same place I stood those weeks ago, with the same amount of anger, disgust, and horror. We didn't say a little bit of fossil fuels is okay. We said no more fossil fuels. I don't know how to make the community's needs more clear than that. The gentleman that spoke in the affirmative of this project stated that we cannot reach sustainability in the amount of time we have. I'll tell you one thing, we won't with that mindset. Don't disappoint your community. The solution to climate change isn't by becoming more reliant on fossil fuels, any more than the solution to school shootings is putting more guns in schools. We have to be moving away from the thing that is actively harming people. I hope you are all prepared, for me, my generation, and all of those to come, to face the consequences of your vote and decision tonight. Because if we can't stop this here, where do we draw the line? I beg you, draw the line here. Thank you for your time.
I'll ask again, is there anyone that wants to speak for this? Okay. Wait a minute.
Thank you, dear.
Good evening. My name is Heather Jackson. I live in Logan. You mentioned that we're going to be retiring some of our current fossil fuels, right? I haven't done a ton of research on this project. I just honestly came here for a school class today, but I know that we need electricity. People are mad right now, and I understand it's frustrating when we're going through climate change, but climate change has happened the whole time the Earth has been in existence, and yes, there are ways that we can do, there are things we can do to combat it, but people are going to be more mad when the power goes out in their house, when they can't warm their children in the cold of the winter. If there's not another option right now, we still need a way to provide the electricity we will be losing when we retire those plants. And if there's not something in place right now, we need to get something in place because we can't go without electricity. It's not feasible, not in this time, not right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was awesome. My name's Darren Perry. I live in Avon.
My ancestors, though, lived in this valley for thousands of years. This valley was not just our home. It was a living, breathing part of us. It's who we were. The choice you have before you tonight is to continue to rely on an unsustainable fossil fuel path, or pick a different path, and one that honors our future generations. I completely understand the temptation of convenience, the promise of energy, and the promise of comfort, the promise of ease. The energy we use should be one that nurtures us and sustains us, and that respects the spirit of the land. We must seek alternatives that honor the earth's wisdom. We have the power to make decisions that uplift us all, that leaves the land better for those generations yet to come. It's good to see our youth here. The choices that you make tonight will echo for generations. Choose wisely. Choose for the future. Choose a path that walks in harmony with the land and with the mountains and with the waters. Choose a path that honors Mother Earth and all those who call her home. Choose a path that honors our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
My name is Christian Schrader. I'm a resident of Logan and a student at USU. I did not plan to speak today, however, I wish to present things briefly in a manner that I have not yet seen. And that is to highlight what I believe to be the sort of hinge point of the actual commitment, which is the amount of time that it covers rather than its magnitude. While it is true that we need electricity and that we are currently lacking in alternative options, it is, I believe, unfounded to assume that we will not gain that opportunity within 3 entire decades. 30 years is far too long of a commitment to fossil fuels especially, and that I believe to be the much more pertinent piece of the equation as opposed to the size of our state. Thank you.
Thank you.
I remember my name this time, Josh Molitor. First I want to say is, we did not inherit these lands from our forefathers. We are borrowing them from our children. I can't believe that we are at this, like at the last gentleman, he just pretty much said what I wanted to say, but I can't believe we're at this juncture again. 30 years. I want to put that into perspective. In 30 years, I will be 82 years old. 30 years, most boomers will be gone. 30 years, probably half of Gen X will be gone. We still have millennials, Gen Z, and Alpha Gen to think about, all right? Because they're the ones that are going to be inheriting our decisions. So, I mean, we really need to think about this and start doing something different. To get out of this rut of stupidity of these fossil fuels. Thank you.
Thank you.
So before you start, I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the proposal that has not yet spoken? Okay.
Hi, my name is Scott Marchand. I'm a resident of Logan. Recently was able to buy a house, and I don't envy you guys for this decision you guys have to make. Buying a house, I have a 30-year mortgage now, and that's pretty daunting and freaks me out all the time. So having this kind of agreement for you guys too is probably really scary.
Welcome to
yeah, it's not fun. And I appreciate the fact that you guys have, I'm sure, thought about this. I talked to Mike a little bit, and you know you guys are doing your best to make a good decision. And I just want to put my voice in there and say that I urge you to not vote in favor of this power plant. And I think about, 30 years is a long time, and I echo what a gentleman said before, and how that's a long time. And my daughter was born only a few weeks ago, and to think that, she'll be 30 when they're still relying on this, and that's kind of scary. And I'm a firm believer that better options will come up in the future. And once again, I thank you for all the effort you guys have put into this, and I urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Beth Solon. I live in Logan, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse. The thing that bothers me the most on this is it's the 30-year contract. A few months ago when we were at this last time, it was a much longer contract. So I think we're pointing we're not purchasing as much power. It wasn't as long. So I just think 30 years is too long, and I think we need to go shopping and keep at it. I heard recently anthropological scholar talk about research he did, and he talked about humankind, and he said that humans are genetically programmed to only be able to think of our children, of our grandchildren, and if we're lucky enough, our great-grandchildren. After that, it's hard to conceptualize the next generation or the generations coming beyond that. And I think that with every decision we make, we have to think beyond that. And thank you.
I'm not in favor of the plan. I'm not sure there is any question. Okay. Good evening, City Council members. My name is Rebecca McFall, and I speak today not just as a concerned citizen of Cache Valley, but somebody who's been listening really closely to this issue broadly and now more specifically. So I'm going to abbreviate my comments because I know there's only 2 minutes, so I'll just get right to it. I've heard the arguments: urgency, reliability, cost. But I just want you to consider it from a broader place. Urgency without wisdom is panic. Reliability built on dying systems is brittle. And the cost of inaction on climate is incalculable, ethically, ecologically, and yes, even economically. So looking deeper, it's clear that this isn't progress or resilience or necessary. It's inertia. It's fear masquerading as pragmatism. This project doesn't just ignore the science, it also dismisses essential wisdom long sidelined in the name of progress. So, what if we were the city that reset the compass, centering long-term, resilient, sustainable well-being at the heart of our civic decisions, and then really committed ourselves to following that path? That would be seismic and inspiring at a time when we all need a reminder that collective action, positive collective action, is still possible in this country. So let's not become the city that greenlights the last big carbon project in Utah. Let's be the city that said, enough, we can, and we will do better. Let's move forward with the science, with wisdom and integrity, with faith and resolve in our ability to chart a better path. RESAB's preliminary work already points to cleaner, cheaper, smarter options. Give them room to finish. Give this community room to breathe. Give this incredible community with talented minds and great big hearts a chance to lead us somewhere better. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Hello. So this is all new to me. I've never even been to one of these in my life. Thanks to my son, he actually came up to me. He's like, "Mom, stay calm." I will. So I'm just listening to all these things. And
Please
thinking,
give us your name.
Oh, sorry.
and where
Yes,
you are.
Candace Schroeder. I've only lived here for a little while, but I'm from Utah. I'm 44.
Oh, you don't have to tell me.
Not required.
But thank you.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I'm 17. Listening to all these things, I think the thing, and I wasn't prepared for this. This is coming from my heart. Listening to all of these, everybody talk and seeing all these things, the thing that comes to my heart is it's time for a change. Definitely time for a change. And I don't know much about this. I'm learning from my son mostly, which is amazing to me. But it feels right for a change. It feels right that we have got to stop leaving a carbon footprint or a toxic trail like DuPont or like Paulsboro. Like, it is time for us to stop doing those things. Time and time again, we've seen that it doesn't end well. And I'm watching my 14-year-old now on the verge of liver failure, and my 9-year-old that doesn't breathe well. And I keep asking myself, why? What am I doing wrong? What do I need to do more or better? And I don't think it's just me. I think it's all of us that need to make that change. And I feel that there are ways that people can still run their businesses. Like I know that if we don't have enough snow, again, I'm still learning all this, but if we don't have enough snow, the rivers, we can't get the energy from that, but we can do wind energy, and we can do solar energy. The sun can power a lot, and it gives people an opportunity to become more educated and be able to get more creative with businesses and how to conserve and how to keep our environment clean. And if we just keep giving them what they want, and if we just keep allowing them to come and leave their footprint that is ruining our lives, essentially, they're not growing. None of us are growing. We're just following that same path. So I'm just asking, please, and I appreciate all the questions that you were asking. I appreciate that so much. Please do what you know feels right or what is right for the future. I ask.
Thank you.
I'm against it, so I don't know if
That's
somebody
okay.
is for it.
I'm just.
My name's Molly Murphy. I live in Logan, and I study environmental communication, and I want to thank you all. I have emailed most of you before and always receive really kind and thoughtful emails back, so thank you for your service. I'm familiar with a lot of stereotypes of environmental advocates, that we are naive, that we're well-meaning but misinformed, that we're hysterical, or that we don't care about, I'm not saying you hold these stereotypes, but they're common in the public sphere, or that we don't care about the economy or understand our energy needs. But those of us who don't want this project and are urging you to vote against it, we do know what we're talking about. We do appreciate the other concerns on our energy needs, and we have a really great group of advocates who are against this project here in Cache Valley. We have experts in water, experts in energy and ecosystems, in history, in communication, and in community health. We're really well informed, and what we care about is something that I know everyone cares about, ensuring a healthy environmental future for all living things. And we are truly here to help you problem solve if you reject this proposal, which I and we hope you do. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, Molly.
Hi, I'm Matthew Pontuesi here. I live in Logan. I'm going to go a pragmatic approach. As far as the 72-page contract goes, the argument that Mark likes to continue to give is that it's reliable, or we need to get it now, otherwise we're dealing with market prices later on down the line. Well, it's already a flexible number at the discretion of UAMPS as well, because as far as any legal action that gets taken against UAMPS in the future, which I expect more to come against greenhouse gas emitting gas companies and the like, they'll probably have more legal action coming up. They get to defer all those legal costs onto the contract holder. So, going forward, it's probably worth considering that level of interaction. It's like a leech, basically. Like, if we wanted to break the 30-year contract, then we have to go through a whole bunch of legal hurdles to get out of it early because we finally found a sustainable option. Then it's going to require us to pay more and more and more as we continue to get that legal justification situated, organized, and then implemented. So, economically, this is a silly thing to do in the first place. It's not a matter of how much unless it's considered zero. And a lot of people are talking more about the, actual significant reason that should have been the reason number one and only reason. Anyways, thank you for your time. Bye.
I'm against the project, is it okay if I'm just doing it?
I'm for it.
Before I leave?
I think it's time we start thinking about common sense.
Please tell us who you are.
Kevin Moore. I've been in Logan 66 years. My mother taught me about common sense. She was in the education department. Well, she taught school. She taught Mark. She was very proud.
She sure did, that's right.
Very proud.
That's right.
Vote on the last time this came up.
No. My first grade teacher.
I hear a lot about feelings and education, and I know that not very many of these predictions ever come true. Al Gore's bad thriller has turned into a bad comedy. We need reliable energy for the future. We need to have businesses. If I was running a big business and I was thinking about Logan that had a flaky energy system, or another city that had a solid energy system, I would be going away from both. That's all.
Thank you.
Hello, Janice Bettinger, 33-year resident of Logan, Utah. My USDA agricultural zone moved from zone 4 to zone 6 in the 33 years that I've lived here in Logan. And I'm very concerned about, in general, fossil fuels. They're fossils, they're running out. And by burning that fossil carbon, we are changing the atmosphere, we're changing climate. Logan is such a great place. Look, you just got an award today for the parks that were here, for Jim and Carol Lobb. This is the Logan I want to live in. I want Logan to be a leader in terms of making the right decision to say, we're going to do this. Just like some of the comments that came earlier, have the wisdom to do something bold and be creative and involve your community. And I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm speaking against the proposition.
I just want to refer you back to my earlier speech.
Tell us who you are again.
Oh, Gail Hansen, and I live in Logan, and I like time travel.
Thanks, Gail.
And I've got a couple of points. One is to rebut the gentleman who spoke about common sense, who also referred to the heightened emotion around this issue. Let me go back. He said the Challenger is going to blow up, everyone's going to die. And he was beating his fist on the dashboard. He was frantic. Are we going to listen to the engineers? Are we going to listen to the scientists? Are we going to listen? Or are we going to have the arrogance to say, you expect me to wait until April for warmer temperatures? Also, this bit about growth. Yes, growth will happen. Yes, we need to plan for growth. And I understand that the issue with the baseload is that that's current baseload. I understand that. And that's valid. That's a valid concern. Growth will happen. So if somebody wants to come in and build something that takes energy, can we say, hey, you're welcome to come, but you need to bring your own batteries. You need to bring your own liability coverage. And here's another thing. We've got emotion. Can we make this a moonshot for the people of Logan to say we're going to pour all our personal energy into addressing the energy crisis that we do face? Thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you all. My name is Tom Allward. I'm here in Logan. Don't have a super dialed, prepared speech or anything. This might kind of get all over the place.
It's okay.
Thank you for being here. I understand this is very hard and very complicated, but I don't really understand why we're here. And I don't know if I missed it, but you guys didn't really explain why you're having second thoughts. I thought we voted on that. I was here for it. So I'm mad and frustrated and pretty appalled. And I thought I should say something. It doesn't sound like too many more people are, but this seems kind of weak. Like, what are we doing? And I think, yeah, like getting energy from fossil fuels that's already there, it's easy, right? Very convenient. But that seems lazy, it seems very passive. It's a very old way of doing it. Like, I think like it's been said, we can be leaders here. Why not be a little more courageous? We can grow smarter if our state is an obsessed, capitalistic, growing place. Why not make it more sustainable, grow smarter, require things like solar, and provide laws, litigation that makes that where we go. We also don't have to rush this. This was a big point from last meeting. Like, why is this coming down to like right now? Seems like we need to listen to the smart people that we have on the RESAP board, smart people in this town. Also, like, this is a very pivotal moment. This seems like a tipping point. What is your legacy going to be? Your kids, people that are going to come here after, what are they going to think about you guys, like, in this moment? Are they going to be wanting more fossil fuels? I really doubt it. Okay? What sort of world are our kids going to...
You've used up your 2 minutes.
And get after it. But anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Gino Shute, 33-year resident of Logan, and I'm really confused why we're here. We were told at the last meeting that this was a take it or leave it proposition, that you had to vote to accept that 30 kilowatt or megawatt power that night, or we were out of this. Someone mentioned at that meeting that it sounded like a used car salesman. It sure as hell sounded like a used car salesman now. Okay. Why are we back here? 30-year commitment, meaning ownership of it, and with ownership comes liability. If you don't think liability is important, talk to PG&E in California. They know what liability is for transmission line failure. And this idea of Mark, I respect what you've done for this city tremendously, your support of downtown, small businesses, local businesses. But there's something you said at that last meeting, out of the sky, wherever the speaker was, that basically said we need to grab as much power as we can from any source possible because we're already losing businesses that would move in with high-paying jobs. Before we worry about perpetual growth, why don't you make sure that we have affordable housing for the people who are already here instead of bringing in more rich people that are going to drive up the prices even more? Thank you.
Great job. My name is Chrissy Richards. I'm a resident of Salt Lake City, more importantly, planet Earth, where we all live and hopefully want to keep living. I am feeling fear, and I understand that there's a heavy weight on your shoulders. Like in 5, 10, 20 years, people might look to the decision made tonight and think like we needed power, and the feeling that maybe you could have secured something that safe or reliable, and you didn't seem scary, and I get it. But it is much scarier to face a future of accelerated climate change than it is to be like, we don't know for sure in this exact moment where the power will come from. The more, we've heard some things about climate tonight that are like, whoa, okay, hopefully, you know, like we're all on board that like, this is not human caused, this is accelerating fast. Scientists have been predicting this for decades. The science was pretty much done half a century ago. And the predictions are being met and outpaced in almost every case. Hopefully that's not what's being debated tonight. But I see this coal plant closing as a spike of fear. It can be an opportunity. We should be celebrating a fossil fuel plant. Finally, we're not tethered to that anymore. Finally. And what are we going to do? Sign up for more fossil fuels when we're finally free of it? That's the same mistake we made when we signed up for that in the first place. Let's not repeat it. I don't know, am I allowed to ask a question? But does anybody here like identify as a climate denier?
Don't, well, we don't usually do that.
Okay. Hopefully not.
Answer later question.
But hopefully we're not there. But if you don't claim to be or identify as a climate denier, please don't act like one.
Thank you.
Russell Goodwin. I was reading in the New York Times about Hanford, Washington, a horrible environmental disaster, legacy of nuclear power and nuclear weapons, but that some parts of it have been sufficiently cleaned up and remediated such that a solar farm is being constructed with battery storage sufficient, according to the New York Times, to power Seattle, San Francisco, Denver, and Portland, as I recall, 4 major cities. That Trump is frustrating the completion of that project. I would be much more comfortable with your consideration of this issue if you would come up with a resolution urging completion of Hanford and condemning Trump's destruction of the EPA and solar and wind. That would make it much more compatible, I think.
Thank you. You got in just under the wire.
Run, Wes. Go, Wes, go.
Yeah, that was overdrive there too. I can't move much faster than that. My name's Wes Mangum, citizen of Logan. I just wanted to touch on one note. A gentleman here mentioned it earlier, but just the 30-year part. I just wanted to share some of my thoughts on that in particular. You know, some of the things we heard earlier were, you know, very, very great points about environmental concerns, about what it takes to run a business here in Cache Valley, about the need to plan for what we have now and what we will have in the future. I just want to reemphasize that I don't think the concerns have changed in the last 83 days since we did this, and I fully respect the need to continually, you know, evaluate options to come to the best thing. But just want to share, like thinking about 30 years and where that'll put us now. If we look back in the past 30 years, the price of solar in America has dropped hundreds of times over in 30 years. And you can follow the charts, you can read the analysis from people much smarter than all of us and see that we are headed in the right direction and have been for decades there. And along with that, batteries as well. Last year, the United States installed more utility scale batteries in 1 year than we had ever before up to that point. And this year, so far, we are projected to do 60%, 66% more than that year. So just want to, again, like, urge the city council to think. I know we've got to be thinking about the future, but let's not think in terms of 30 years at a time and tie ourselves to things that are risky. They're risky for health and they have financial risks. Let's look for options that give ourselves the chance to make the right choice over and over and not be tied to one option for so long. Yeah, and you'll be off my time. Just takes away the sense to me.
Hi, my name is Peter Adler. I live in River Heights. I moved to Utah in 2006, and one of the things I appreciate about Utah is the importance of families here. And I thought I was going to say something about thinking about the next generation, but so many other people have spoken about that eloquently, so I'll just skip that. Except say I envy the position you're in, that you'll be able to tell your kids and grandkids about something concrete that you did to slow down climate change. And I worry that I won't have a good answer like that when my son's asking me like that. What I want to talk about instead is costs and risks. The risks of not being able to provide power in the relative short term, those are very clear. It's very easy to quantify the costs of those things. So when you're thinking about this decision, those numbers are really solid. The costs of climate change are harder to quantify. They're happening farther in the future over a long time period. They're affecting health, people, mortality, morbidity from heat waves, from wildfire smoke. There's other costs. What about the shortening of the winter sports season? All these things are hard to quantify. But that doesn't mean they're not real. Those are very real costs. They're going to be borne by society. They're going to be shared across society. It is going to be a lot easier and cheaper to figure out alternative ways of keeping this, alternative ways of meeting the energy demands right now. That's going to be easier and cheaper than getting these greenhouse gas emissions out of the atmosphere in the future. That's a much more difficult and more expensive problem. Thanks.
Thank you. You got it under the wire, Nathaniel.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if you wanted to hear from me anyway. But, you know, I was trying, sorry, my name's Nathaniel Weidler. I'm a Logan City resident. You know, I love innovation. I work in the technology field. In 2014, I was excited to learn about lithium oxygen batteries from one of my professors up at USU in one of my courses. She told me about how in 2 years, because of the power density of lithium oxygen batteries, your cell phone would last for a week without needing to charge it. There's still research being done in lithium oxygen batteries. Some are predicting theoretical power density of 15 times, current lithium-ion batteries. Sometimes technology takes time to develop and to mature. I see the Power County Natural Gas Project as a good step forward, moving away from coal towards natural gas, which does not pollute as much. Since we've spoken last, I've done more research into EDAM and RAP, the Western Resource Adequacy Program. Those are two different resource adequacy programs that we will be a part of next year, and in 2028 are the anticipated dates. Both carry penalties for not having enough resources. I hope you know that I'm very open to new ideas and new things. I haven't seen a good alternative to natural gas that we have before us right now. I hope that there will be something in the future. 2024 saw the first nuclear power plant that came online in the United States in 3 decades. It was almost $20 billion over budget. There's risks with everything. I would encourage you to take the 30 megawatts of the Power County Natural Gas Project, which will allow us
to meet our resource adequacy demands and invest in some of these renewable projects. It will cover our resource adequacy and allow us to cover the renewables. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I will allow 2 more.
I'm Riley Patuasi, been resident here in Logan for the past 1.5 to 2 years. I'm going to be very jittery because I'm socially anxious, and I'm quite frankly incredibly frustrated that, again, we are all here to speak about this issue. I would like to point out just very quickly that you've gone through this process of asking if anybody would like to speak up in, in support of buying into this project, and at the very last line, on the wire, before the gentleman over there spoke, was perceived as the last one. He came up right after to just presumably be the last speaker, and in this engagement, just kind of like mix things up to get you reattracted to this, to this buy-in. With that being said, Ernesto was making incredibly good points in conversation and question about the alternative with the geothermal and company via California. I can't remember the specifics, but as the gentleman who was speaking to was iterating, there wasn't communication. There's been a lot of quips from Mark from just mouthing by anybody here that was coming up against this project, exclaiming their support to research and to, actually engage with other alternatives of renewable research. And he's like, where are you going to find that? I don't know. Look, open our eyes and ears, listen to the people that are coming here with, concerns, righteous concerns about this, and be a trailblazer. Engage with building the infrastructure to actually incorporate these other forms of energy and renewable resources, instead of sitting with your tail between your legs and simply talking and reiterating on a prospect that you had priorly agreed against for some reason. Again, it's been iterated. Why are we here? So, I don't know. I'll leave that with you. Also, the whole cutoff time, that's bullcrap. Allow people to speak in a mannerly time.
Excuse me?
Bullcrap.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I'm Patrick Belmont. I live in Logan. 2024 was the hottest year on record, surpassing the previous record, 2023. 2025 will be hotter. 2025 will also be the coolest year that our kids will ever experience, and probably our grandkids, in their lives. Drawing fossil fuels to the surface and burning them is what's driving the climate crisis. And even if we stop burning fossil fuels tomorrow, the climate keeps warming for another 4 decades. But we're not going to stop tomorrow. And we can't. And I understand that. But how much hotter are we willing to let it get? How much more damage needs to happen before we choose another path? I sent you all a reference list of 40 of the most concerning trends in climate fuel disasters in just the past few years. There are millions of families losing their homes, losing everything that they have, from wildfires to hurricanes, and so much more. Communities being displaced, nations watching their futures slip away. These are the human consequences of a destabilized climate. This is the violence that's experienced around the world based on decisions that we make, and it's accelerating. You didn't start the violence, and you can't stop it entirely. But tonight, you're deciding what role you will play in the violence moving forward. Every bit of carbon pollution makes it worse. Every bit. We do need an energy plan, but we need the right plan. And we have time to develop it. We have not taken the time to explore the full range of possibilities here. We have not been asking the right questions. Let's take that time as a community. Many politicians will vote for things that are against their constituents' best interests, assuming they'll forget before the next election. And there's precedence for that. Just ask for a few more seconds. I hope you all hold yourselves to a higher standard than that. I'm writing a book about the legacies we leave behind. This 4-month saga will be in it. How does this chapter end? Will it be a story of division and short-sightedness, or one of leadership, collaboration, vision, and perseverance?
Okay, Patrick.
Logan already has committed to far more carbon pollution than is morally or financially reasonable, and there are a lot of deep financial risks associated with this. This is about integrity. I ask you to vote no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm closing the public hearing. I said it was 2 more people, and so we're going to close the public hearing. So I'm sorry.
I just wanted to mention, have we looked into hydrogen?
These generators will burn on hydrogen too.
What's that?
These generators will burn on hydrogen too.
Oh, yeah? Me and a friend just wanted to mention that we created a hydrogen generator to put on our cars. And hydrogen comes from water and is a clean burning fuel source. Yep. I put it on my diesel pickup,
right on,
which burns crude oil, a lot of crude oil. And it helped out the emissions immensely. And it also helped my fuel mileage by 50–60%. I did not master the innovations of it, but me and my friend got really close. And my new idea is that we could actually create hydrogen generators for each home. And it could produce the fuel for the furnace and actually for the fridge too, so it could work as heating and cooling, just like propane does for a propane fridge or a heater. And hydrogen is our clean source and our most powerful source of fuel. And we can do it through electrolysis.
Okay.
What's your name? Lamont Von Eaterhouse II. I'm
Awesome.
out in Hyde Park. I know the money that we have going on with the government, you know, and the control of gas is a lot of money. And I get it, especially as far as business goes. And there's a lot of money in the gas business.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Lamont.
We'll bring it back to the council. I want to take a point of privilege in saying the reason we brought it back is because there was some discussion and concern expressed by council members that they were take it all or nothing. It was an all or nothing decision. And some of them felt that they wanted to have the opportunity to talk about a range of participation from 0 to 30 instead of just 30. So when members of the council feel that way, we will bring it back, whatever the decision is. If they feel that they want to revisit it, it has nothing to do with being done with it. It has to do with, in great respect, our concern that we need to, as I have said to many, many people, stand on both sides of a great big chasm. That we want to be sustainable, but we also have an obligation as a council to be, to plan for a reliable future. And so that's why it came back. So just so you have that said out loud. And I will open it to the council for whatever they want to say. Or nothing.
So I was searching for information regarding our conundrum, our dilemma.
Challenging decision.
Challenging decision, definitely. As Mike has said numerous times, if zoning decisions was all we did, it would be much easier.
It'd be an easier job.
It'd be an easier job, yeah. I shared with you guys, council members, something interesting I found. Some of you may know I grew up in Tijuana in Mexico. once I joined the council here and started being part of these decisions, I became very interested. How does Mexico generate its energy? Turns out that in Mexicali, which is the capital city of the state of Baja California, has the biggest geothermal plant. I don't know if in the entire continent, I don't think it is, but it's one of the largest ones. Started in 1973. I believe it started at between 50 or 100 megawatts, and it's grown all the way to 800 megawatts.
Will they sell us some? Will they sell us some?
I think there is actually an agreement with California to do that if they need it.
If we can get it, I'll take it. I'll take it right now.
It produces, I believe, 40-some% of the capacity needed for the entire state. When I was searching and I found that Fervo here in the state has a new approved permit back in October for 2 gigawatts of energy production.
They won't sell to us.
I feel like we are at an inflection point in the sense that, yes, we could make the easy decision to approve something that, a proven technology per se, something that will be on all the time if we need it to be on. But I do fear that if we wait until we have more red air days in the summer or in the winter, so many of them that everybody is knocking on our doors to say, hey, we need clean energy now because we have bad air days, it'll be too late. And I don't know that I personally could live with that decision of having this opportunity to step away from fossil fuels and years from now be like, oh, we had that chance and we just didn't take it. If this decision was about a 5-year term contract, a 10-year contract, I think I would have a different opinion. But it's a 30-year commitment because we won't start for another few years, and then it's 24, 25 years.
It's a 20-year bond.
It's a 20-year,
And the
yeah.
potential for the facility is a 30-year production cycle, so it's a commitment.
Paid for in 20 years.
The bond is 20 years.
Yeah.
Minimum commitment.
Another fear I have about moving
Before we
forward.
go on, why you say it's an easy decision? You said it's an easy decision for us to go with the natural gas, and I disagree. I don't think it's an easy decision.
I think it's easy because it's the more affordable and because it's a technology that has been used recently, and there are few concerns about its reliability in the sense that you can turn it on and off as needed. That's why I think
Fair enough.
that I call it an easy decision. Another concern, and this is based on what Mark just shared, when I think somebody asked something about the people signing up for the project, and then he said something along the lines that some of the people that are signing on to the project are leaving some of their renewable projects. And you can correct me if I'm quoting any of that wrong, Mark. That is a big concern, I think. As I mentioned in our last time that we voted against this, and just a couple weeks ago, if we sign on to projects like this, if we continue to that, we are closing the door, I feel, on businesses starting projects that are renewable that we can sign on to. It's not so much that we wouldn't be able to sign on to them, it's just that there will be fewer opportunities because as any business that looks at the market and opportunities, they will only build what they know they can sell. They're not going to build something in the hopes that somebody will sign up for them. So that is a big concern I have about moving forward with what's on the table. And the last thing to close my comment on this is, I call this an inflection time for us as a city, as a council, because back in 2020, when everybody had to move to a virtual, a remote type of setting for work, for a lot of us, not everyone. Virtual and remote work was already a thing, but it had not caught on. And that was the catalyst for a lot of jobs to be approved to be moved remotely. We don't get very many of those in our lifetimes when we see huge changes like that. I feel this is an opportunity for us to leave us open with a bigger opportunity to sign on to renewable energies that I believe will be there. I believe Fargo will have a hard time selling 2 gigawatts of power if they are going to produce that much. And so I would hope that we think very hard about approving any capacity for this project. Thank you.
May I just add one thing? Again, there are always trade-offs, no matter what we choose. And I think, again, the reason this project was brought back for reconsideration, 2 weeks ago, we had a really good presentation by Tyson Godfrey from RESAB and Nathaniel Wheeler from the Power Board. And it was sort of an all resources together, and their proposal was, you know, try and do 20 megawatts of solar and then balance that with a portion of the project from the Power County project. So, again, nothing's ever perfect, but again, the thought was we can do a combination of both. We're not just saying we're not going to do any renewables. We'll do a big chunk of renewables, and we also need some base load to go along with that. And so it could be a combination of both. I don't think we're saying only one thing, so.
Our goal is for 50% renewable by 2030, and I think we can do that. There's no way we can get 100% renewable by 2030. It's not going to happen, whether we like it or not. So can we all agree that solar is not base load? Can we agree on that? Solar is not base load.
Which according to the experts I've talked to, even with battery, it's not. You'll extend it by a few hours, but.
According to Charles, who's running his house, 2/3 off your house, correct? 30 megawatts of solar does not cover our needs. It gives us 2/3. Even if we're as efficient as Charles is, and I would guess that we are not as efficient as Charles is.
Yeah. And the other thing that, you know, we kind of committed to doing as part of this is let's see if we can also decrease consumption. Because we know there's a lot of demand with the electrify everything, which is great because electric and, I mean, it's better for the air, but it also means demand is increased. So we're just trying to balance a lot of different.
And that's an issue because I think for the last 20 years, we've been decreasing consumption and using better technology. And so our demand hasn't gone up as much as it could have because we've all switched to LED lights. We've all switched to more efficient means of using because the technology's been available. Everybody switched to LEDs, right? You're still buying incandescent bulbs. How do we start, conserving more when we've already reached kind of our limit with the technology that we have right now? I don't see our growth going 1.5% for the next 10 years, increasing our demand by 15%. I think our numbers are off. I think it's gonna be 30 or 40%. And that's why I keep saying, I'll take this project and I'll take the solar that we can do, because I think we can build our own solar. We can take the project that Mark just said, we can get 10 or 15 with battery on that one. We're gonna want it all. We're gonna want it all because we're gonna run out.
Well, I think electrification is
Electrification.
identified as a way to help
Hey,
things, but if everyone has a heat pump, they need electricity to run that. I mean, I think I'm with you, I think our electric demands are going to
what we
go up.
calculated last time, 10,000 cars are gonna create as much carbon as this plant. If we stop driving our cars, you will create a lot less carbon. Everybody drove here tonight, right?
In my electric vehicle.
That's what, and how are we gonna power that?
I plug it in.
We're not having a discussion. It's our discussion. It's our discussion. You gotta power those suckers with something, right?
So Mark, can I ask a question? Mark Montgomery?
Stop.
Yeah.
Mark, can I
Go ahead.
ask a question?
Mark Montgomery.
Yeah, Mark
Mark,
Montgomery.
could you come up? I have a couple questions.
Join us at the hot seat again.
Join us.
Yeah.
I know you love it up here.
So I just think there's been some questions about like the 30 years. So I know the bond is for 20 years to build this. At 20 years, then, could we choose to no longer purchase power moving forward? Like, when we're saying we are making a commitment to this, are we committing that we will purchase 15 megawatts or 20 megawatts or whatever a decision might be? Is that a commitment, a purchase
I believe
commitment?
the term of the power sales contract is 20 years.
20 years.
20 years.
So, okay, so the 30-year is, I'm not sure where that came from, but it's 7 years before it's developed, correct? And online,
Yes.
most likely. So, okay, that was one of my questions. So it's 20 years is the actual purchase agreement that we have with them. So if additional power is purchased through this, what impact does that have on our usage of the peaker plant? Will the peaker plant most likely go down? Like, is there a trade-off between the two if we have the base load?
Well, the peaker plant is not quite as efficient as the base load, and we like those because we need something to cover peaks in the winter and in the summer or at nighttime when renewables aren't available. Typically, if you have a base load source, you can back that
Yeah,
peaker off and just have it sitting there. That's the idea. Capacity factor is not very high, ideally, with the peaker.
So, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we rely on that peaker, it's actually more polluting than if we have the base load in place.
Yes, it's not as efficient.
It's not as efficient, okay.
But the trade-off is it's much quicker to ramp up and ramp down.
Right.
To cover peakers. Yeah, peakers.
And these generators are convertible to hydrogen.
Is there any,
And then the last question I had is like, so where are we at in terms of the mix of residential versus commercial use? Because I know as we talk about conservation projects for consumers, or commercial, it's like a 50-50 split? Are we like 30% for residential?
I would say in the shoulder months, like we're in now, we're probably a majority of commercial. But in the summer and winter, the colder months of the winter, we're probably closer to the 50-50.
To 50-50, okay. Because I know, I mean, I think it is important too, as Mayor Dane said, think about conservation opportunities as well. And I know when I was on RESAP several years ago, one of the discussions was, how do we incentivize people? And one of the big issues here in our community is that so many of our properties are owned by landlords. And so even, it makes it a little bit more difficult if you say, do we do rebates or do we do incentives for people to add insulation, to do things like that? That becomes, to me, a little bit more problematic if somebody who's basically running a business is getting that rebate versus a residential customer. So I don't, and I do know we talked about that in the past.
Well, I might add, a lot of our current and past incentive programs have been for residential places. We're starting a pilot program to work on commercials, but that's a place for this discussion another time.
And what are those, like the residential programs that are still ongoing? I know we just did the lawnmower, snow blower
Yeah,
one.
we've got those coming. I mean, we've got lighting upgrades, if people want to upgrade lighting, upgrades to go from an air conditioner to a swamp cooler or a ground source heat pump, or thermostat upgrades, smart thermostat upgrades.
And the funding for those comes from the city coffers or from
Comes from
grants?
ratepayers. I don't get any tax money in my department. All the money that we use is from ratepayers.
these generators that can be converted to hydrogen, have any of them been successfully converted here in the US?
I don't know. I know that there's a lot of projects that are a lot further down the road than these are, but I don't know if anybody's running hydrogen. I think the biggest hurdle that they're struggling with is the green hydrogen, the gray hydrogen, and the dirty hydrogen.
So what would drive the timeline of conversion
Economics is a big thing. Usually when you burn, right now, to add hydrogen to a generator, it increases the cost by, it almost makes it double to triple because it's expensive to produce hydrogen. But like everything else, they'll figure out a way to make that more productive, I think.
So to this day, you don't know of any of them that have been converted here in the U.S.?
No, I don't.
There's
That's not to say there isn't.
Are any international ones?
Australia. There's a really cool project in Australia, and they're creating green hydrogen with solar power, and then they're burning the green hydrogen. I sent that to Mike too. Yeah. So it's a really cool project. Yeah, it's a really cool project. I think that hydrogen is as likely that we get that in the next 10 years as we get nuclear or geothermal.
Geothermal is already
I know.
attainable.
But where?
Yeah, that's
Can we buy some from Mexico?
Yeah.
We'll take 30 from
They
Mexico,
have to
right?
pay a lot of transmission fees.
We'll take 30 from Mexico. Yeah. And the projects that you're talking about, the 2 gigawatts, where is it? They're not going to sell it to us.
So have we?
They won't sell to us.
Have we looked at all of our options to reach out to some of these bigger projects that you're saying that we are not able to communicate with?
No, just say it. It's that simple.
No, we do. I mean, if we're involved in negotiations for term sheets and power purchase agreements, and then they walk away and say, never mind, don't return calls, don't return emails, don't want to discuss it anymore, I don't know what else I can do with that.
Be honest.
Sell it to us.
I like the suggestions of the legislator doing something that requires a big output like that, some of that to remain in the state. That's not the place now.
I talked to Chris Wilson about that this morning. Yeah. I don't know.
Did your discussion go better than mine and Jeannie's
I
discussion on that?
don't know if they'll do it. I don't know if they'll do it. It's so disappointing because it's like, if we're going to have big power projects like that in the state of Utah, we need to get a portion of it.
And that, I mean, that's part of the discussion that I told you about that we had with Jason Thompson, and he just said there's no appetite at the state legislature to.
No, that's just not right.
He says that they're not going to limit what they can sell it for.
When we are surrounded by states with much deeper pockets than us,
do you know what?
We are not going to get any of it.
Do you know what the average price per kilowatt is in California? So I looked it up today. 31 cents. And ours is 11 to 12 for residential. Yeah, but you start at 11, you could get yourself up to 12.
Yeah.
But they're triple what we are in California. And if the state legislature is not going to,
they'll pay for it.
They're not going to help us fight, then
they can pay double what we can pay right now.
Triple,
and beat us every time. That's the problem.
And I'll tell you, I don't have an appetite to triple our rates.
No, and I don't have an appetite for imposing another surcharge if we don't have capacity, because that was brutal. It was brutal for our businesses, and we cannot allow ourselves to be in the position that we cannot get power, and we have to be on the market, pay a penalty because we don't have enough capacity, and start to impose surcharges on our customers again. That's what it comes down to. It's like, this is a business, so we don't have a this is an enterprise business.
No. This is a city.
And people.
People's lives.
Where's our public housing that we're renting out then?
Who pays for everything?
Janine, please. He's not speaking truth.
Well, Logan City Light and Power. Logan City Light and Power is an enterprise fund. It is not funded by taxpayers. It is only funded by ratepayers. It is
a business.
It's not funded by the general.
This is our meeting. This is our meeting, and we are talking.
Okay, stop.
Done.
Stop.
Yep, we're done.
If the audience continues to participate, you will have to leave. Because we had the public meeting. Matthew,
It's our turn.
it is been brought back to the council. The council is allowed to deliberate and make a decision. You have had your opportunity to speak. So if you continue to interrupt the meeting, you will have to leave. Sorry. Thank you. Keep going.
I don't know where I was, but thank you, Madam Chair. I lost my train of thought.
Oh, good.
If you do not have a product to sell, your business goes out of business. And we are in the business of providing power to our residents. It is part of our charge to provide services to our residents.
If we were Rocky Mountain, if we were serviced by Rocky Mountain Power, there would be no discussion.
They are in the business of making money.
Yes.
And we are not. We have to survive.
But I've said this in other meetings on other topics that I feel like, not regarding power, but that my number one responsibility is fiscal responsibility for the city. We can't bankrupt the city on any decision. And we all have projects we care about of other sizes and other things, but I think our number one goal is always fiscal responsibility. I mean, it does have to be part of the equation, because we can't bankrupt the city on. I would love a bunch of bike lanes, but I'll make my bike lane joke tonight.
That's a disingenuous argument, and I'm going to see myself out. This is costing people's lives. It's driving millions of people out of their homes. They lose everything. I'm leaving.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Patrick.
He's right.
Thank you.
I do look at, we had the presentation from Nathaniel, who's the chair of our Light and Power, and Tyson Godfrey, who's the chair of the Renewable Energy Board. When was that, 4 weeks ago?
Just 4 weeks.
They came and presented. It was online. Anyone wants to go back and review it, but they have one of the slides that I've looked at over and over again, and I've asked numerous people about this. And no one's given me an out on this slide. And I do feel like this presentation was presented by the Renewable Energy Board and the Light and Power Board. It was from my perspective, an unbiased, and as unbiased as you can get, bringing both sides together. And the decision matrix we all looked at there with the, do we purchase natural gas, yes or no? And if we're not purchasing natural gas, we're essentially hoping that something else, geothermal, nuclear, comes online. So does geothermal or nuclear come online, yes or no? And I look at this, I've looked at this a lot and talked to other people about it.
100 times.
Yeah, but if we say no to natural gas, it brings the greatest reward, possibly, of having lowest emissions, and the greatest risk of having higher emissions if we don't get geothermal or nuclear. And this is assuming that we do our solar and storage. And I've looked at that, and yeah, there's the potential for lower emissions with a little bit of increased cost, but there's also the potential for higher emissions and increased cost if we say no to some participation in this project.
I feel like the reason we brought this back is because of that presentation, because between both boards, they've pretty much said, we need both. To make it work, we need both. So we do our 15 megawatts of solar, we buy from Fremont another 10 or 15 megawatts of solar, both with battery backup, and it still doesn't cover our need. And so we have to have something else to go with it. And I'd love to get that geothermal. I'd take it right now.
However, I think one of the challenges is that we are trying to make a decision on what's available right now.
Or in the next 7 years.
Yeah.
We can see that 7 year.
We can see that 7 year.
So we have at least a
nothing.
7 year binoculars.
There's nothing on the horizon for 7 years. Minimum. Yeah, minimum.
Told me to take a walk.
What about second dam generators? I notice they sit and they're idle. They're built and they're sitting there.
Excuse me. I will answer that, but it's 2 megawatts is roughly what we can. I mean, it's a very small.
They're running. They're not.
Yeah,
Redesigned
but
generators.
There's more
You have a lot of water that flows out the mountain.
Please don't interrupt our conversation.
Again.
Deeply thought out.
We
They're
have done this research for the last 3 months after our decision, and we have looked and looked and looked and looked and looked. And there's nothing on the horizon for 7 years. And there's not going to be anything available for less than that because of the transmission issues. So we're looking at a minimum of 10 years before anything new becomes available. That's just the hard facts that we've got. You know, it's like, you and I have talked about it multiple times, Mike. We've been to Light and Power Board, we've been to RESAB, we've been to all those meetings. And if there's nothing there, we've got a minimum of 8 to 10 years before we can even get it.
And one of the big, and I think I talked to you about this, I can't remember if we talked about it after we walked out Ernest or before with the panel I went to Utah State. But I talked to the nuclear researcher from the Idaho National Laboratory, and I walked down to the parking lot with him afterwards, and we talked for 45 minutes while we watched to make sure our cars didn't get tickets. And the big thing that he told me that I walked away from that with was that nuclear will likely be available to Logan in the next 20 to 30 years. And I said, inside 20? And he was like, probably not. He's like, 20 to 30? Probably. But his understanding of where it is, and I'm not a nuclear researcher with a PhD at the Idaho National Laboratory, so I have to trust his perspective. But his perspective was what they're looking at is micro and small modular reactors. And it would be something that we would have to build behind the meter here in Logan City if we want it in 30 years, right? Like we can spend.
We can do it.
Probably a couple $100 million and be the first in the state to do that. And that's a possibility. Is that a possibility in 20 years? Probably not. Is it in 25, 30? Possibly. And are Logan residents going to want a nuclear reactor out by the
polishing ponds?
The polishing ponds in 30 years. And I don't know if I have an answer for that, but at the same time, he also was pretty confident that we're not going to see nuclear for us inside the time frame of this plan.
For 20 years.
And that broke my heart a little bit, but it is, I feel like I spent 4 months looking for every option. And I haven't seen.
We haven't found it.
You've been quiet over here.
Well, I was gonna say, I was looking for an email that I knew we had looked at, so related to the fines. We got some information that she said we're talking about fiscal responsibility, that the resource adequacy requirements could result in fines equivalent to the cost of owning the natural gas resources. So that was sent to us a couple of weeks ago on the 17th. So in terms of what the fines are, if we're not meeting that,
they will be in the millions a year.
It's not an insignificant amount of money that would be passed on to our citizens through paying for their energy.
And I did talk to you, Chief, through Nathaniel about this. And this was regarding Hunter or Sunnyside, I can't remember, that if we decide not to run this, right, like we can have participation in it and decide, oh, we have cheaper options. We can not call on this power, correct, Mark? And we do have to pay the minimum operating costs, which will be somewhere in the range of $100,000 a month if it's similar to Hunter or Sunnyside.
Or we sell it to somebody else.
But we can turn it off and not run it if we want to, or our portion of it, and pay $100,000 a month or so.
The likelihood is it would be sold on the market.
We'd sell it to somebody else.
Yeah.
But we could.
Everybody needs power.
Yeah.
But we could, if there was an abundance of power, not run it and pay our power and pay our fixed costs for the employees.
Or if our renewables got.
Right.
Yeah.
If we had enough affordable renewable options, we can say we're not running this and we can pay $100,000 a month, which is more affordable than paying the fines if we don't have the resource.
Yep.
And that's
why it's not an easy decision.
It's why it's not an easy
That's why it's so important.
because I want to say no.
That's why it's so important we get that capacity, because we have the extra capacity plus the 15% extra we need. Then we can go out on the market and actually buy the energy that we want and sell what we don't. But we can't do that without the capacity.
And if solar panels drop to the point where they're crazy cheap,
then we
if nuclear comes online, then we pay our $100,000 penalty, which is less than our multi-million-dollar penalty.
Get some more.
How long is that Do you have to pay that
Stop.
$100,000 penalty? I'm sorry to interrupt.
It would be a monthly until our contract is up.
It's a
So
20-year.
so it's a 20-year contract, and it would be a monthly until the contract is up.
30 years.
20-year
20 years.
contract.
Does it have to be that long?
But obviously, you're not going to pay that starting on year
So,
19 of the contract. I mean, year 1 of the contract was 19
No.
left.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but highly unlikely.
Well, I might clarify.
Sure.
So the bond will be paid off in 20 years, but if the plant continues to run, there are still fixed costs associated, just no bond payments. But it becomes much cheaper power at that point, you're not making bond payments. Again, you'd probably sell your share to any number of entities if you didn't want to keep it anymore.
If that solar from Fremont becomes available, are we going to take it?
Yes.
10 to 15 megawatts plus battery.
We're signed up for 10. I'm trying to get 15, but I don't know if I'll get it.
Done. So we're we're investigating our own.
Yes.
10 to 15.
Yes.
Possibly more.
15 minimum was the request.
So there's nearly 30 right there of solar. And if we add 15 megawatts of natural gas, we're still 78% cleaner than what we're doing right now.
Have you said...
And bearing in mind, when we looked at some of the slides that you and Yushi presented in terms of our demand, the demand over the next 10 years is only going to go up. I mean, we're looking at our base load for what we need right now at this point in time. And again, when we talk about the electrification of things with cars and heat pumps and, I know there's people that approach me saying we should have our building code say that you can no longer have natural gas for your heater and your furnace and your stove. So that's only going to increase the demand for electricity over time. So I think that to me is what I'm struggling with is if we're not even at the base load now, what are we going to do down the road? Because ultimately, it is a business, but it is our responsibility to provide power to our citizens. We don't, it'd be a lot easier to sell it all to Rocky Mountain and let Rocky Mountain deal with these headaches and figure out how to get power and get rate,
And then
through the
we'll pay
rate
more.
controls.
And then we buy coal-generated power.
And everybody
And
pays
have no
more.
choice.
And everybody pays more for it. Yeah.
And we have lost businesses to neighboring cities because they can provide power that we cannot.
That we cannot.
Because we did not have enough resource.
Have you
As
figured how much it is?
as the demand goes up, even if it's at a minimum amount that Mark suggested, 1.5%, let's say it goes up a little bit more, our base load could be close to 100 megawatts in 10 years.
Which hopefully
And almost
renewables.
be 100
hopefully
megawatts, which the
renewables are
renewables will
available.
help with our peak. And that's what Tyson showed us, is like we can use those renewables during our peak time to counterbalance that out. But it's like if our base load gets that high, if we're up to 90 megawatts, we're going to be buying the solar and we're going to be buying more solar. And this is only going to be 15% of our portfolio.
So let's talk about quantity, because what's before us is 15 megawatts. I will tell you, I am not in favor of a 30 megawatt purchase agreement.
No.
Absolutely not. Like, that's a hard no for me. So, I mean, do we need a motion on the table for what has been presented to be able to talk up, down, quantity, et cetera? I mean,
I think that if someone wants to make a motion and there is a second, then it can come up for discussion based on that motion.
I would move approval of resolution 25-12.
At the 15 megawatts.
That's what it's at 15.
Is there a second to that?
We couldn't hear the motion.
Yeah, can you repeat that?
She moved to approve 15 megawatts, so the contract has read.
What's on our agenda?
Have we walked away from any?
Hold on, we have to have a
I
second.
know, that was a long pause. I had other questions, but we'll not proceed.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded, so now it's open for more discussion based on the motion.
Go ahead, Mike.
sorry, I was just gonna ask Mark Montgomery if there hasn't been any not geothermal, renewable projects of any substantial scale that we have not participated in, that have come available to us that we've said no to, that we've been able to.
Nothing of substantial scale.
I know there's been some like small, 200 kilowatt and such.
Yeah, there's been some small ones. There was a geothermal that still would have been fairly small out in Nevada that did go. And we have a couple of California and Nevada members at the UAMPS that took that. If we were to take it, it would have been very expensive. We'd have had to pancake transmission costs to get it over a couple of different transmission companies to get it to us. So,
but there's been no
that's probably been 10 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. That was my understanding.
But in
is
the
that
last
we've
10
accepted
years,
everything.
in the last 10 years, any renewable that's come forward.
Nothing significant.
Yeah.
Every time you come to us with a project that's been renewable, we've taken every one of them.
Yeah.
As much as we can.
Every one. It's not whether we don't want them. We'll take every one you bring to us.
So
They're just our name.
There's a motion and a second, and do you want to discuss megawatt-ish? Do you want to discuss whether that's the right number? Do you want to vote? What do you want to do?
I think we need at least 18 to replace what we're losing.
You want 18? Which is
Well,
what we're
you know how much I want, but I'll go for 18 because that replaces what we're losing
from the coal.
Makes it 60% cleaner, and we can still reach our 50% renewable goal in 5 years.
You're an optimistic pessimist. You know that?
I'm telling you, we can reach our goal of 50% renewable, which is our goal, in 5 years if we do this. Because taking this allows us the freedom to find what we want. When you're looking for your next megawatt, you can't explore options.
Do you feel like, Mark, participating in this project in any way limits our ability to participate in future
I don't, and so here's,
renewable projects?
in my simple mind, and I know there's a lot more smarter people out there, everyone talks about renewables and solar and wind, and those are great, but they're a low capacity factor product that doesn't take care of the whole day. Our biggest peak in Logan City is 100 megawatts, 102 megawatts in the summer. We could put 100 megawatts or buy 100 megawatts of solar, and when the batteries run out and the sun goes down, we have 0 megawatts. I have to go out on the market and buy what's available. Well, guess what? There's no solar and wind available on the market
at
that time, and that's becoming the most expensive power of the day. So the gamble, I guess, is to say no, which a lot of these good people have talked about, and do something creative and more advanced or whatever. Right now, to your point, your baseload powers are limited to fossil fuels, nuclear, geothermal, and hydropower. You're not building another dam in the United States.
I'm not going to get it.
Nuclear is 20 years out. Geothermal, we're trying. We're digging every place we can find it. So if nuclear is 20 years out, in my mind, that puts those peak hours at night, puts us on the open market, which is fine. We'll do it. We'll buy it. But we'll pay a premium for it. And guess what? It's going to be likely fossil fuel.
It's going to be cold.
So I'm conservative in my job because I know I need to provide reliable power for the city 24/7. And so to me, this is the most assured way to do that and to keep costs under control.
And if we say no, it's not like we're not using the power or we're not buying the power. We're just buying what's available on the open market, which we don't know what it is, at whatever price is available.
Well, you do know what it is. When it's dark, it's...
Sure.
I mean, there's nothing else running.
When the sun's not shining, you know what it is.
I mean, everybo's locked up all the hydro contracts, and we're part of that. We have a pretty good chunk of Colorado River Storage Project and a few other things, but yeah, I mean...
But that's if E2. Colorado River.
Yeah, the
Does
drought,
it-
the dry years and as we talk about environmental changes, that gets compounded as we continue to put more carbon in the air, so. I don't know. Like you say, you have a tough decision.
No
I'll do whatever
easy
I need to do to provide power for the city.
So is there, just pie in the sky, Mark, is there a hydro potential in Logan City?
Potential?
Not hydro, I mean,
Geothermal.
hydrothermal, sorry.
Behind the meter
You know,
in city limits.
You've got some geothermal activity in the surrounding locations, and I've had companies come through. A guy that had a big field in Preston, he wanted
big one
to
in
sign
Preston, yeah.
an NDA, which I did.
Tried to buy that.
And also a letter of intent to buy, which I did. And then never came back.
Yeah.
As far as Logan going and drilling test wells and trying to develop a power project in Preston or over by Crystal Hot Springs,
Or here?
I don't know of anything immediately here, but the cost to do those test drills and stuff, I mean, I don't even know what that would cost.
Maybe $100,000 a month.
So it's,
A lot more.
Maybe up front though.
You just said you don't know what it is. How can you provide an estimate?
but,
It's true.
well, it was pie in the sky.
It's worth
Well,
checking.
don't throw that back.
It's worth checking, so,
Just freeze that for a minute.
all right.
So
Anybody say, I said 18.
Mark has proposed 18. Is anyone else in the mood to go there?
I would
Are you gonna make
propose
another,
10.
are you gonna make another proposal?
I would propose 10. If everybody's decided that they want to go forward, take capacity,
Yeah, 10
I
is,
would propose 10.
10 is what Tyson suggested.
What?
Just kidding. Just feel like there's numbers.
I just was like, huh? all I heard was April Fools, I'm sorry. But, so okay, Mo, you may have to help me here. So there are multiple options within
There's
a resolution.
seconded.
A motion and then moved and seconded, but there's multiple options of size talked about within the scope of that motion. Do we have to deny one and start a new one?
That would be the easiest way to do it, just vote on hers and then move on to the next one.
Or amended.
Or you could amend it if you want to amend it.
Yeah.
That was what
She would have to amend her motion.
Or accept it.
What do we do without lawyers? Thank you.
So is there someone who wants to amend the motion?
Or does Amy have to amend?
I have to.
Well, she'd have to amend hers.
You have to accept a friendly amendment.
Yes, she could accept
I
a
could accept
friendly.
a friendly amendment.
Right.
would you like to amend your?
Oh, she's got all the power.
I have no power at all. As I said, I'm comfortable at the 15, so that's why I made the motion to approve it at 15, because I know there are these varying, Ernesto's comfortable with 10, Art is more comfortable with a higher number.
I turned that off.
Your time's up.
Don't let her talk anymore.
To me, the 15 seems to be a compromise number.
It helps cover our gap.
Covers our gap,
We need that gap to be covered.
most of our gap.
Yeah.
Covers most of the 18 that comes offline.
Did I say 18? I meant 20.
So you're comfortable at 15?
I'm comfortable at 15.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
I have nothing else
Do
to
you
say.
want to vote on it?
No.
I call for a vote.
Can somebody explain what it means? I don't know what it means, I'm sorry.
Vote has been, so a motion has been put forward to accept the resolution as presented. It has been seconded
For 30 years.
for 20.
It's a 20-year contract
20-year contract,
for 15 megawatts.
15 megawatts.
Okay.
There was a suggestion to amend the motion to 10. that the person who made the motion did not want to accept. There was a motion to move it up to 18, which the motioner also did not want to go with. So the person who proposed the motion proposed it at 15. It was seconded at 15. Mark has just called for a vote, so we will vote on it now. How do we want to do this?
You're the chair. Vote? Do you want to call us individually?
Just do it.
I say aye.
Mike?
I say aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Ernesto?
Nay.
I say aye. Motion carries.
Amy and the mayor up for re-election, by the way.
Thanks, Amy. It's awesome, bro.
Well, thanks to your power, you have disappointed your constituents, and I would not be surprised if you lose your next elections.
And I won't be shopping at
We're
yours
still
ever again.
We still have
Yeah, we still have that agenda item, but I'm more than happy to talk to you afterwards. Yes, please stick around. Thank you.
We'll move now to our workshop items.
Shuffling in.
Our first workshop item this evening is a new drinking water master plan and capital improvement plan, resolution 25.
Actually, we need to do the public hearing on the budget.
Yeah, we've got a budget.
Oh, sorry.
And we also need to, if they're going to talk, then they need to send a lobby copy.
Sorry, I screwed up. We have one more public hearing.
And Rich Anderson is at a conference
Thank
for
you, Bob.
governmental accounting, so I will, if you have any questions, I'll deal with that on the public hearing for the budget adjustment that you did workshop it 2 weeks ago.
So this is a public hearing on a budget adjustment. If anyone would like to speak to that, please come forward, state your name, and speak to the motion, please.
Yeah, I'm sure that they would sell it.
Brad, 3 minutes or 2?
Pardon me?
Do I have 3 minutes or 2?
You
At
have,
this point in the meeting, maybe we should get down to 2.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it.
you can have 3 minutes
Cool.
to this motion.
Yeah, I know, the budget and everything like that. So, let's see, we're subtracting a whole bunch from the environmental departments and everything like that because of, seemingly devoid from the whole conversation with federal level interference inside of our plans and everything like that. So, I just hope that somewhere along the line we'll end up having a repeat budget funding that's at least on the local level because federal and state issues tend to not be so fickle, or seem to be pretty fickle these days. And you'll have contention inside that kind of stuff from people inside of the area that think that CAPSA is a joke that can be ignored. Yeah, I don't know. I'll defer the rest of my time, but this was an interesting one. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this budget adjustment?
I'm Gail Hansen, I live in Logan. First, I want to clarify that I stomped out because of the lack of decorum. But on this motion, I have told my husband, and he has told his Boy Scouts, that there is tree planting available for Eagle projects.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the council.
Move for acceptance. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll make a comment that I'm all in favor of finding budget to plant trees.
To plant more trees, I know.
Despite the fact that we
That would be
lost
awesome.
a federal grant to plant
Yes.
trees.
300,000 down the toilet.
But we will not stop planting trees. It might be a little slower, but
But this is for this year's fiscal budget.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, we'll keep planting trees and we'll keep looking for money to plant trees. It's not like we're not going to plant trees now. Not that Matt stayed around to hear that we also love trees. Mark, do you want to make the motion or should I?
Go ahead.
I'll move we approve resolution 25-13 as listed.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to our workshop items. Sorry.
We're listening to Joe?
Thanks for waiting this long time, guys.
It's our new drinking water master plan.
last.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Joe Potts. I'm the Logan City Water Division Manager. I'm really appreciative of our opportunity to introduce the 2025 Water Master Plan draft to the mayor and the council. As you know, master planning is really important for any system, especially something as complex as our water system. Master planning is common in the general plan, transportation plans, and in our water master plan, it's even more critical, I think, because we have an updated water model that simulates our water system, which is very complex. Our last master plan was updated in 2016, so it's been a little while, and in 2023 we reached out with an RFP to get some bids and ended up selecting Hanson, Allen & Luce engineers to do our master plan. Derek Homestead is our Logan City Water Division engineer. He managed this project from the Logan City side and did a great job. And we also have Hanson, Allen & Luce here to present. I also want to acknowledge the Water Advisory Board. Chair Simmons was there, and she reviewed the material. We also have Dr. Anderson here. He's one of our board members, I think our longest seated board member right now. So we appreciate the Water Advisory Board's time and their efforts in reviewing the master plan. And I'll go ahead and let Ridley Griggs from Hanson, Allen & Luce take over.
Okay, like Joe said, I'm Ridley. I'm a professional engineer and project manager with Hanson, Allen & Luce. Over here, oh, where'd you go?
I moved over and hid behind a pillar.
So over here we have Steve Jones. He is our CEO, and so he's here to rescue me if I go off the rails or if your questions are too difficult. So happy to be here. My general approach is even if even if a meeting's not running along, I tend to like to move pretty quickly. And then we circle back and let's just focus on the questions that you have and the things that are important to you. So that's how I tend to operate, but please stop me at any time.
And we've all had this to look it over too, just so you know. It came out in our packet, so we've all had the opportunity to review it.
Awesome. All right, let's go. Okay, so when we talk about master plans, essentially the master plan tells us two things. Where are we right now and where are we going? Where do we need to be in order to provide continued water service to our residents? So when we talk about what comes out of our master plan, first is just kind of that, we call it a report card. How's the system doing? You know, is there source capacity? Is there storage capacity? Are we providing reliable service? Are we providing service at good pressures? So we'll talk about that. And then we look at what comes in the future. You know, as Logan City changes over time, what does that look like for our water demands, for our system? And how do we accommodate those changes? And then a real key important outcome of a master plan is it provides the city with the basis for a lot of important things. Provides the basis for impact fees, which allow the city to charge new development for costs related to new development, so we don't have to put a cost burden on ratepayers for that. It helps the city evaluate water rates. We look at what needs to be done, what are our costs coming up, and if we need to look at rates, then the master plan gives us a good basis for that planning as well. And then there are also water rights plans that are required by the state. There are a number of things that water right holders need to do to keep their water rights in good status. And so we have a master plan that demonstrates how much water Logan's using right now, how much water is Logan going to need, then that strengthens the city's positions for water rights as well. All right, so other peripheral topics, I don't know if peripheral is the right word, other topics that factor in here. So we link in the general plan land use based on the city's general plan. Talked about water rights. Another big issue that we want to consider is what do we do as the infrastructure ages. We want to look at energy efficiency in the water system. It takes a lot of energy to move that water, and so anything we can do to maximize that efficiency, we incorporate it into the planning. We look at water quality, right? We want to make sure that we're delivering clean water, in line with all EPA standards and in line with customer expectations. And then we also want to consider water conservation in our planning. So we'll hit on those as well. Okay, so this is the big summary slide. And how I often like to think about when I'm trying to summarize is what are the key, I call them vulnerabilities that the Logan City water system faces today. What are those things that are not quite where we want them to be or could pose an issue down the line if action is not taken? And so those are listed on the left. One big one is just the amount of storage in the system. We'll get back to that, but more storage capacity is needed. Logan's growing, so we have to act accordingly and plan accordingly. Source redundancy is another thing we think about, and what I mean by that is what happens if we're in the middle of the summer and everyone's using lots of water and a well has a problem or some source has a problem. Can the city continue to maintain operation if something goes wrong, or would the city be stuck? So we are approaching that point with source in Logan. Pressure swings I've listed as number 4. So essentially that comes down to a reliability parameter. So if you have 100 PSI at your house at noon and 30 PSI in your house in the evening, that's hard on appliances, especially sprinkler systems. That's where we see a lot of trouble, right? Because you go out in the middle of the day, you set up all your sprinklers perfect, and then when you turn them on at night or early in the morning, if your pressure is drastically different, you're going to have problems, right? So we're seeing some of that in certain areas of Logan with potential to increase if we don't address it. There are a few areas with lower fire flow than the fire people would prefer based on the info they've given to us. We'll hit on that. And then the infrastructure is getting old. My understanding is we've still got pipes in the ground from the 1800s in several locations. So nothing lasts forever, so how do we plan for that and stay ahead of that as the infrastructure wears out? So how do we address all these vulnerabilities? We want to plan for our water rights, make sure we're staying ahead of all the rules, making sure that the city has adequate protections in place. We want to be promoting water conservation to stretch out that supply, increase our resiliency. We have a storage project proposed. We have pump station projects proposed to help us move that water where it needs to go. We've got some fire flow projects proposed and some distribution projects proposed. And then we've also done some analysis to recommend a pipe replacement program. How do we select which pipes to replace and how much money do we allocate? So that's kind of the whole summary in a nutshell. And from here we can go ahead and dive in. So this is a map of the existing system. I don't intend to dive into a lot of the details here, but what this graphic has is these red arrows point to different major source facilities in the Logan drinking water system. So up the canyon we have DeWitt Springs, which is the envy of every other city in this entire state.
Yes, absolutely.
Great producer. And then as we go to the southwest, you'll notice 3 more arrows kind of in series. And what I just want to point out is that they are all generally along the path of the Logan River, right? So water runs downhill. We see it in the Logan River. It also exists underground where a lot of the wells are. So that's going to be a bit of a theme as we talk about infrastructure projects is we got to get the water from where it is to where it needs to be. And where it is largely along that Logan River corridor. So that'll play in as well. So when we talk about pressure swings, where customers that see a lot of change throughout the day, we are seeing in the southwestern area of the city, as growth occurs, as water demand increases, essentially what happens is as more and more water is pulled through the distribution pipes, there is a friction that occurs, and so that water loses energy, and that manifests itself in the form of pressure loss. So as more and more growth occurs out west, if we're not constructing pipelines necessary to provide that additional conveyance, then we just tend to run the existing pipes faster and faster, and we pull our pressures lower and lower. So this graphic here is color-coded. The areas shown in red are seeing pressure variations in excess of 30 psi. So that's a fairly small area out in the southwest right now.
Well, there seems to be one right in the middle of town.
Yeah. Yes, so that right, yeah, so they're...
Right by your house, Chief.
Yeah.
Where this fire station is.
Yes, yeah, and I do appreciate you pointing that out. So that's actually in the next pressure zone up. So right now, the mode of operation is Logan has a lot of water up high and a lot of demand out low. And so as the demand out low increases, we start having to kind of borrow that water up high. And so we pull it through all the pipes all along the way, and that causes that friction and that pressure loss as well. So what happens out in the southwest affects, it kind of cascades on up the hill. So that's what we're seeing right now as far as pressure swings. And again, the source is, further north, further east generally, and the demand tends to be out west, southwest. So go ahead. So that's a little bit about what we see right now.
Can I ask a question? Can you go
Please.
back to that? So that's primarily residential areas that are experiencing that pressure switch versus our more of our commercial zone, or is it both? Is it both types of clients?
I mean, it's anyone in the area. I think right now we probably are more residential.
More residential down there.
It's definitely residential highway area.
It's not necessarily tied to the use, it's more tied to the pipe size.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the geographical area in the network, yeah.
But I live in that area, and I've talked to Joe, that we have weird pressure at my house.
Okay, yeah.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's great, sometimes sprinklers break. You never know. Just it is what it is. And all my neighbors talk about it.
That's what we're trying to fix.
Yeah, no, but it's it's not like extreme, but it's noticeable.
The changes.
Yeah.
So do we have within the master plan process, I know the master plan process for community development is probably similar but not the same. You have recommendations for specific interventions that would help with those pressure that they're not all just construction, correct? Are some of them potentially legislative, where we would require higher impact fees or something that would help to offset the need for all of this expansion in the pipes?
So
Sorry, that's a little random, but.
no, that's a good question, and we'll see how well I understood it here. But yeah, essentially, you either build capacity or you manage demand. Those are kind of the two alternatives I see. So either build some more pipes to increase that capacity, or take some action that reduces that peak demand. So, if some cities that I'm familiar with, they ask people to water on a turn, right? Based on your house number, day on, day off, things like that. That can help spread that demand out a little more.
Well, what I'm getting at is water is the great delimiter when it comes to development, in my opinion. Because when you run out, you run out. And is there a way that we legislatively, through this master plan process, can begin to determine whether or not that project out there is really going to overtax our ability to provide water everywhere else, or something like that? Do we have that? Is that within the confines of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So our intention is we kind of do a what if, and we say, all right, what if we don't build something new? How does that look? And then when the situation becomes unfeasible, then we identify a project that's necessary. And I think a big tool that we'll get into is going to be impact fees, right? So impact fees are your tool to manage that. So you can kind of, you say, all right, here's the need, here's the cost. Now, okay, development, you can partner with us to figure it out.
Okay, because I know that within the general plan process, the state has required that we include a water component in that. So water has to be an integral part of that plan. So I just want to make sure that we have a methodology to say no if we need to.
And just one thing to clarify, the master plan is looking at the needs and projects. It's not setting the impact fees, though. That's a different study, but we'll use the master plan to do that.
Okay, okay. Sorry, just trying to understand the whole program.
No, good questions, thank you.
Have you gone over this one?
I don't know that I did my, well, it's fine, this is fine.
Okay.
So, so what, we talked about what's happening in the system right now. What are we seeing? But we want to, whatever solution we identify, we also want to make sure that, when the pipe goes in the ground, that it's big enough to meet the city's needs through the useful life of that project. So a big part of master planning is looking at what's coming in the future. And so this is just a population growth chart. Logan's been seeing roughly a 1.2% increase in population. So we stuck with that assumption in the plan. And then if you go to the next one, Joe. So then you look at population, and then you have to figure out where do they go. So we coordinated with the planning department. We identified areas that the growth is likely to come in several different time horizons. We're predicting the future, so we can't be perfect, but we try to be as reasonable as we can, and we feel like we've got a lot of good supporting data for growth coming in the near term. And then, Joe, if you want to move to the next slide. We also look at a 20-year period. That informs the capital facilities plan. And then if you go one more, we also look at the 40-year period. And so we try, again, because once you bury a pipe, you hope that it serves you for a good long time. And so we're looking far into the future. And in fact, even beyond the 40-year, we'll look at, what I'll probably refer to as build out in this situation, what's happening 60, 100 years, what's happening within the life of that pipe. So we'll look at all those things to make sure that when the pipe goes in the ground, it's sized appropriately. So I have a table here that discusses storage requirements. So what I have lined out, if you look in the first column, I have time horizons. So I have top row existing, and then 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 40 years from now, and then at the build out condition. In the second column, I have a requirement, and this is the amount of storage that is needed in Logan City to provide fire protection and to provide what we call equalization storage. And essentially what equalization storage is it functions like a battery of sorts. So when the demand is really low, we fill those tanks up, and then when the demand gets high, the tanks drain, and so they modulate that demand. Without tanks, you'd have to develop more sources and bigger sources because they would have to meet a peak instantaneous demand, kind of like we do for power right now. But in water, we have quote batteries. And sorry to bring it up.
Bad word right Please don't pick on my wound.
So, all right. So if we look at this chart, so then the next column shows our available capacity. So under existing conditions, Logan operates about 11.3 million gallons of storage. We've carried that through assuming a do-nothing scenario, which is not the recommendation, but it's just kind of a hypothetical. Where are we at today, and where are we going to be at moving forward? And so, yeah, please.
Sorry, is that available capacity what we have right now functioning?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll mention too, the storage capacity is governed by Utah Division of Drinking Water rules. So in developing these numbers, we followed their methodology, we used their rules. and come up with a deficiency of 4.4 million gallons under existing conditions. So
you didn't just make those numbers up.
So you're telling me that we need to build some storage somewhere?
I've heard that you've been.
They're unique to Logan, though. That's the cool thing with the standards, is they're Logan specific based off of how we use our water.
Oh, wow, that's
They
cool.
calculate it based on your historic use.
Yes, it's the last 3 years that they look at to come up with the requirement.
That's
good.
pretty unique.
yeah. So
We tend to be a one-size-fits-all group.
Yep. So in looking at how we meet this storage requirement in the most efficient way we can, I'll call our minds again back to where are the problems occurring now and where is the growth occurring? And it's all out kind of in this, not all out, largely out in the Southwest. And so, over time, and this has been an ongoing conversation for years, even before this master plan. We look at, okay, do we put more tanks clear at the top of the hill and then feed down? What would that look like? And essentially what that would look like is running big pipes all the way from top to bottom. And so we started looking instead at situating that storage tank down a little bit lower, a little bit closer to the demand, closer to the need. And then constructing some transmission to get that water back and forth from the storage as demands change in the system over the day. So this project is included in the master plan. Something tells me it's probably not the first you've heard of it. But I'm hoping to give, if there's even more context I can help lend about why it's necessary. Again, thinking about where the water is, which is by the Logan River and closer to the canyon, versus where that water needs to go. This project is intended to bridge that gap in the most efficient way possible. So,
good?
Yeah, I'm good if you are. Okay. So again, there's a storage deficiency, according to DVW rule, needs to be addressed. And then the solution provides storage capacity for well into the future. It provides a way to get that water from where it is to where it's needed. It'll also help stabilize pressure swings in the lower zone. And it'll give the city's operators more tools to move water around where it needs to go, operate under different scenarios. If a well does have a problem, they have more buffer to work with, they have more options. So those are some of the benefits of that infrastructure project. All right. So shifting gears a little bit, wanted to talk about water use and water conservation. So this chart has a couple of lines. As we march from left to right across this chart, we're moving in time from 2014 to 2023. So there's a blue line you'll see that trends upward throughout time. That's our population growth. So in 2014, we were around 49,000. We're now up over 55,000. So pretty significant growth. And then the green line is water use throughout that same period of time. So you'll notice a little bit of variation from year to year. 2020 was the big anomaly, and we saw that in almost every system we worked in. Something about us all being locked in our houses, maybe, and wanting green lawns. And it was a very, very dry year too. So that was a little spike there, but we've seen it moderate the past few years to where usage in 2023 was quite similar to usage in 2014. So,
and that's total water usage, not adjusted for population.
That is total water use in the Logan City system.
That is conservation.
That's awesome to see.
In its finest form, right there.
Yeah.
That's a huge
Well, it's
population
also,
growth.
didn't we fix a lot of pipes in the last couple of years? Leaking
Every
pipes?
year we're trying to get some. Yeah.
You see that drop in like 2018 to 19? That's
Now,
center
come on,
street.
Ernesto, don't you want to
Yeah.
give it,
That's
give
Center
the
Street
citizens
right there.
credit for this? Oh, yes.
Yeah, see that drop from 18 to 19? That is Center Street right there. That pipe had like tease holes in it. So, yeah.
Yeah, but then it went way up.
That is an impressive population growth.
That was the wooden pipe that was still there.
And then it went
from the-
way up.
It's a good thing.
Did that go all the way up into the boulevard? Wasn't there a big issue with the?
Yeah.
We did actually look even further back. I think in the 90s, we found some data for total water use that was much higher than anything on here. Due to way higher pressures, we didn't have pressure reducing valves throughout the system. So in a way, we've reduced our water use over the last 30 years.
As our population.
As our population continues to grow.
And our industry is growing.
That is impressive. Yeah. Ready?
Is that, I don't know if you know this, common in cities in northern Utah? Are we as exceptional as we think? I mean, is that, yes, because I look at that and I'm like, that's great. Is that?
I mean, it's.
Some of us think we're exceptional.
It's kind of all
Some
over
of
the
us.
board.
You included yourself.
I would say some, we are aware of some, usually as a city matures and kind of, you know, the cities I'm aware
Yeah,
of
you're
that have seen the
console.
biggest conservation are the ones that pretty well have built out. And then they start filling in and redeveloping. And so I am aware of cities that hit their peak in 2000 and have been on the way down, or at least one city. You know, cities that have room to grow tend to grow their water demand more generally. But Steve, did you have a comment?
No, that's what we're seeing across the board in Utah, is that the older established cities are seeing a trend like this. We used to manually water lawns and things like that, so as we've gotten the automatic sprinkler controllers in and fixed pulley pipes, drop pressures, this is what we're seeing, and adding population and not necessarily adding grass in proportion, if that makes sense. This is what we're seeing, drops in per capita use.
Good to see. Sorry.
Yeah, but we're still awesome.
Exceptional.
Yeah. Except for
Okay.
2020.
All right. So similar discussion on water sources. So Logan has a pretty robust water supply in a lot of respects. You know, good wells, good springs. But when we look at the requirement on a peak day versus the available capacity, we are closing into about that 10% range. And so if we talk about redundancy, you know, the springs can flow upwards of 10,000 gallons a minute at times. Wells in Logan can flow at 4,000 gallons per minute. So if you imagine that table, and if we imagine that a well goes out of service, then our available capacity might go down to about 17,000 gallons a minute. So from the redundancy perspective, you know, if the wrong well were to fail on the wrong day, I think we'd make it through. These requirements are intended to be a little bit conservative. They've got some safety built in. You've got different, you know, levers you can pull. You can tell people to stop watering. But just in general, moving forward, another source is going to be a need coming up. So we'll talk about that too with our projects. So, and then we also just quickly here from the regulatory perspective, we look at the peak day, which is what that last graph was, and we also look at year-round. And peak day is far more limiting in Logan because you've got pretty stable well sources. So if you can meet your demand on the peak day, you can meet it the rest of the year. So that's all we're saying there. So we're in better shape from that perspective. Okay. So when we talk about future source projects, trying to stay ahead of you know, our increasing needs. There are a few that have been identified in the master plan, and Joe, butt in if you have more details than me, I'm sure you do. But, so the 1,000 North well, that is an existing hole in the ground. It just needs some work to be turned into a producing water source. So we've identified that as a good potential cost-effective way to boost the city's supply. And then River Park well,
It's a similar scenario. River Park well has been drilled, but we don't have a building there. We haven't equipped it. And the location here is prime for the first dam tank. It would tie right into that big transmission line.
Yeah. How long ago were they drilled? Do we know? Do we check? So fairly recent.
Actual drilling was close to 20.
20, yeah.
We went back 11 years ago and reproofed it.
Okay.
Swabbed it, and did a test pump on it, and then capped it for
future use
10 years.
or this use, yeah.
Yeah, for future use.
Okay.
10th North was drilled in the 60s. It's an older.
And that one.
So was it used at some point?
That one was
Okay.
used, but the building, the pumps, they're outdated and needs newer infrastructure there.
Things from the 60s or?
I'm not dated, I'm up from the 50s.
I didn't bring it down. I'm sorry, just be quiet over there. Be quiet.
Better move on.
All right, okay, so long story short, there is going to be a need within the next few years to get another source online so that the operators can sleep at night. But we're positioned pretty well. We've already got a head start on these, and it'll just be a matter of coming in and building some things to finish the job. There are also some pump stations that go along with this first dam tank project. Over time, as the water comes down the canyon and as it's needed in the higher zones, there's going to be a need to upgrade some pumps. So
It's going to give us another 10,000 gallons per minute then, pretty much.
I didn't.
With the two wells.
With the two wells, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Okay, all right. So this map here shows a handful of lines around Logan City where fire flow is not where we'd like it to be. So regarding fire flow, we consulted with the fire department. They told us the needs of various buildings as well as general needs for residential areas. We evaluated the hydraulics and we identified a handful of areas that need some improvements. And the solution, well, really the cause of all of these are old and small pipes. They're mostly 4-inch diameter, and you can only convey so much water through that thing during a fire. And so our recommended solution on these, pretty much all of these are pipe replacement projects. Project number 11, we're recommending we call it a pressure reducing valve. If there's a need down below, if we open up a hydrant, the pressures will drop and that valve will sense that and send additional water. So
In light of our fires in January, those 4 against the mountains are kind of concerning.
Yeah.
So, I will point out that the list, the fire flow project list in the previous master plan was much bigger. So every year the city's been chipping away at this, and we've been making a lot of good progress.
And is this something that, like, when you're in the area doing a road replacement, that you do this, or you prioritize this, go in and typically?
Usually, these projects will try and coordinate with another project.
Sure.
For example, we had one on, I think it was 3rd South or 4th South. This year, where they were going in anyways, they were doing curb and gutter, and we said, well, that's on our fire flow project. Let's upsize that pipeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I had to include a couple of charts like these because I'm a nerd and I thought this was really cool. But the water crew, the GIS department, they provided us with a full data set, really awesome data. Every pipe in the system, what's its material, what's its size, and then they've also been tracking leaks in these pipes. So every time one springs a leak and they fix it, it goes into the database. And so there's a pretty robust amount of data specific to Logan City that tells us, okay, which pipes are more problematic than other pipes. So if you want to go to the next one. So we analyzed the data a bunch of different ways. These are a fancy couple of charts that basically say that the older the pipe is, the more it leaks.
So you have to go to school for how long?
Hey, I went to Utah State, so it was all worth it. Anyway, so on the left chart here, those real high bars there, pipes from the 1800s. So pipes from the 1800s leak like crazy. And those are mostly cast iron. So then as time has progressed, as materials have gotten better, leakage rate has gone way down. But, step back in time farther and farther, and we see it creeping up too. So this is really cool data, and it gives us an idea of how long things are lasting in Logan generally.
What's up with the 1920s pipes?
So
there's not many of them?
Not very much was
That's like,
installed that
geez.
decade. And I think what was installed was a steel, and I guess it's done really well.
Yeah.
So, But anyway, so we looked at these lots of different ways, if you go to the next one.
Maybe we didn't put any pipes in.
It was the Depression that
Yeah,
probably.
maybe they did. Oh, look at those 50s pipes going, those aren't very good.
The 30s?
50s pipes are
It was down
pathetic.
west, which was the.
So we looked at material, we looked at age, we looked at number of leakage. We also looked at how much water is flowing through these pipes, and we developed a method for the GIS crew to use. It's a big formula, basically. They plug, and they can update it at any time they want. They plug in all this data, and then it, based on the likelihood of leakage and how many problems have occurred in the past, it spits out a score for replacement priorities. So if you go to the next one, Joe. So this is a zoomed out map of the system. Again, it's intended to just be pretty general. But basically,
Yeah, it's hard over there.
80, so you're planning on us doing this over 80 years at the $122 million.
so essentially what
That needs to be done next year.
Yeah, that number, so that is, if we dug the whole system up today and replaced it tomorrow. And
That's the cost to replace every pipe in the city,
Yeah.
or just
every pipe in the city, assuming that we do it efficiently, like Joe mentioned, pair it with other projects. We're trying to be as.
assuming we're already ripping up the entire city.
So, and then if an average pipe is lasting 80 years, that would be our recommendation to consider, is that a budget of about $1.5 million a year to replace water infrastructure.
That's 80 years old or older.
No, it's just like a replacement cycle.
So we would prioritize the oldest and the leakiest, essentially. So
Okay.
this methodology, so the red ones identified on this figure, these are the ones that scored the highest. So these are pipes that are old and that have a history of leaks.
So this way, we're consistently replacing any pipes that are starting to show their
In front of
age.
my house.
Yeah,
So we have
absolutely.
we have a plan in place to make sure we don't get to a point where we have to spend that much money to fix it in 2 years.
Yeah.
So for the materials that we're using now, maybe you already said something about this. Are they rated for 80, 100 years, or can we expect them to?
Plastic, it's rated forever.
Yeah, that's what the salesman said. It's kind of like a PVC variant. It's C900 pipe. That's kind of the standard that we see, and it doesn't corrode. It holds up really well. We're happy with it. But of course, the people installing pipes 80 years ago said, hey, this is the industry standard now. So there might be something better in 50 years, but we're keeping up with what people use, yeah.
You probably don't know this number. I'll be impressed if you do. Do you know roughly what we're spending annually on pipe replacement right now?
Off the top of my head, no, but we could look that up. And
Is it close to 1.5? Or?
Well, it's.
Paul's shaking his
No,
head no.
okay. I was just curious, is this like a projected huge increase in our spending on pipe replacements, small increase?
Some of our projects, though, this is just pipe replacement that we're looking at right here. And a lot of this coincides with other fire flow projects, or maybe growth-related projects, or different things like that. Let's say we're installing a new, we do one of the wells and we say we need a new feed line that comes over here. So a lot of these projects will stack up, and so it's not.
And cost less or more?
Well, it's all in that one big pot of our capital improvement plan. And for that, it's, I think, around that amount.
It's our hope. Our last master plan, if I remember correctly, recommended $900,000 a year on our pipe replacement program.
So it's not like we're going from like 200,000 to 1.5?
No.
That's basically inflation.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so you've got inflation incorporated, but we've had years where we put $4 to $5 million towards it, years where we don't put any. Like Joe said, we try to incorporate it into other projects we're doing.
Sure.
But I would say we're, I don't know, anywhere between 500 and 1.5 in a given year.
Okay.
We're in that pipe replacement.
I was just curious if this was predicting a bigger change than what we're currently doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a good question, Mike.
Good. So yeah, so just big kudos to, Logan for tracking this data so well. This gives us increased level of confidence that we're spending our money in the place that needs it most. We're less guessing. A lot of people, they know how old the pipe is and that's about it. So This is a really good way, whatever you are able to financially allocate, that you're spending it wisely, so. Okay, so this map is a summary of projects recommended in the 10-year window. So there's a really big, scary high cost listed on that page. And that's listed in the master plan, so I want to make sure I give some context to that number. There are a lot of ways to pay for that, right? You've probably been in discussions about the first dam tank and pipeline.
So is that first?
That's included.
That's
That's half of
included.
that, yeah.
Can feel better.
Yeah,
So
that's half of that.
That really is the kind of the big project on the table. A lot of these other pipelines are related to development. You'll see some projects out west.
Yeah.
So the intention there is that as development comes and as development drives the need for those projects, that the city would partner with development in one way or another to get those built. So whether that's impact fee reimbursement or other agreements, that would be the intention there, that development pays for development. So a large portion of these projects are, again, development that we hope pays for development. We have recommended increasing the size of the pipe in Logan Canyon. There's a section between DeWitt Springs and the town, section of pipeline that's smaller. It limits Logan's capacity to deliver some flow. It's getting older.
That's the pretty lilac.
Yeah, the 10-16.
Yeah.
You go by number, you go by pretty color.
That doesn't make a little sense.
Clearly, I'm an engineer.
Trust me, it's been apparent a few times in this presentation.
Yeah.
All these graphs.
So as far as big projects that are on, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
All right, I was just going to say, as far as big projects that probably would be more city financed, we're looking at the first dam tank and pipeline, and then we've recommended the pipeline up the canyon. We'll see if we can make that happen in 10 years. You know, if it keeps working well, if we feel like the conditions are right, you know, I guess we'll watch as we go, right?
Kick it down
So
the
we can
road.
start allocating some money towards it though as we go,
Yes.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
If we look at 10-7, 10-9,
Okay.
and like 12 and 13, we're assuming that those will be installed by developers to some extent
Typically, yes.
when those areas are installed.
Yeah.
And the cost assumption for that is in that $120
Yes.
million. That makes me feel a little better.
Yeah. and
Because those
so-
are some big long pipes and some big long numbers.
Yeah, and we have
Yeah, but there's
to,
a
we
big
have to
long purple
include
pipe.
all these numbers because these numbers make their way into the impact fee plan when you
Okay,
guys do that
that makes
later on.
sense.
So we'll say, all right, here's what the pipe costs, and then that gets all rolled into that calculation. So that's why the numbers are all there.
That's an important concept, though. If you, so I think I remember the last master plan, we said you were right at the end of your storage capacity. Now if you looked at Ridley's number, you're now -4. It's important to keep up on the impact fees because you only have one chance to collect those. And once you don't collect that cost, then it has to be the users that pay for the
Right, right.
So
I'm
theoretically, this is all
sort of like, if you want to develop out here where the turquoise line is, you've got a big impact fee, but I don't think that's the way it is.
This is Willow Lakes right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they also impact the tank, and they also impact those other types.
Yeah.
Because you have to get the water out to them, so they participate in those also. It's
Yeah.
one big service
It
area.
is it is one big network, and when you construct a new pipe out here, then you also take pressure off people clear over here. So,
So I just asked the mayor, what happens if an earthquake strikes and the Dewey spring line gets broken? That's like when the wells kick in, right? And help make sure that we still have water.
That costs us $120 million to fix it.
And we use DeWitt so much, it would, depending on when it happened, we might have to reach out to the public and say, hey, please reduce your use, and we'd have to call somebody in for emergency repairs, but.
And you hope FEMA exists still.
Give up.
I mean,
I know, it's already gone.
yeah.
to some extent though.
Wasn't that the first day?
I did want to add one thing to the, I know the total cost is scary. I feel like the master plan, the idea isn't to come up with the cost necessarily, but to do an unbiased view of what the needs are. So we want to say, this is actually what we need, and then in rate studies, impact fees, in that process, we start to determine what are the costs, what can we afford, what do we need to prioritize over.
I wish the general plan were as easy to
What was that?
analyze and identify. I wish the general plan were as easy, because you have all this data and you can look at what the system is and you know what the system needs.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it would be nice to be able to be that.
And my editorial comment is, water is just as important as power, I think. You know, we'd like to have.
Yeah.
Very.
It is.
Maybe more and more important.
Maybe more.
Go 3 days without either and see what you want.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't bring a battery pack to work.
So thank you for those that are here still.
Water support.
Nobody wants to bring a big.
Yeah. All right. Okay, and then we also have projects in the 10 to 20 year window. You know, look at 20-1, -2, and -8. Those are kind of more within the city area. They would be eligible for some portion of impact fee reimbursement, but they also do serve a growth need. So there's kind of a hybrid there. And then most of the others on this map are growth related, so they'd be impact fee eligible as well. And our number there isn't nearly so big. Only 33 million.
Only 33.
Yeah, but by in 20 years, it'll be up there with the other one, with inflation.
Don't remind me, but yeah.
When the tariffs kick in?
Okay. Okay. So anyway.
There's no pipe to buy.
Here's the big scary number summary, but hopefully we provided a little bit of context to that today. As you continue with rate studies, impact fees, we'll drill down on this more, see what the impact is on the city. So anyway, I told you I'd try to be short. I think I tried. I don't think I succeeded.
It's half our fault.
But this is what we have as far as slides. So from now on, we're just here as a resource for you. Any questions at all? Anything else?
This is going to go in the master plan, I assume.
What'd you get?
All this data is from.
Yes.
I mean, like the general plan for.
Only a portion of it goes in there.
Yeah.
Just a water related, it'd probably be more like a summary.
Yeah, that works.
Because.
We have the supporting documents.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this should provide the basis of hopefully everything you need and a lot more to complete that piece of the general plan.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Since it is 9:15 and we're a little brain dead, is it possible that one of you could come back in 2 weeks in case we have additional questions?
So the plan right now is I'm planning on attending.
Okay.
I don't think.
I don't want to shortchange the question period, because I wonder if there might be questions based on what you have given to us tonight, and when we read more, read it with your explanations.
Yep.
It'll make a difference. So as long as you're going to be here, then I won't worry about it.
Okay.
This is your chance.
Oh,
We don't like more chances, kind of.
So why does town center use more water than town center 2 and residential? I love that
TC1?
table. Yeah, TC1 is the highest.
TC1
Okay.
is the densest,
I know.
the most dense.
They can work on that for 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, I know. There's some interesting things in here.
Yeah.
You don't need to answer that question.
Okay, well, I can if you want.
That's all right.
Do you have the answer? Yeah, so we plan on the future condition according to what's in the the general plan.
Okay.
So we want to size those pipes, assuming that one day down the line, if people really do come in and develop a bunch of that area at 70 units to the acre, that
We have 10
we
story
don't miss our
buildings.
shot.
Okay. Right.
So,
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
makes sense.
We have 10-story buildings and stuff.
Possible.
Okay.
Any other questions? We should let these poor guys go home.
Don't know about me, because I'm starving.
Should I eat dinner back for like the last?
Second the motion. Yes, second the motion. I'm starving to.
Yes, oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
You have a whole bunch of council
Thank you for
people
answering our
that did dinner
questions.
before they came.
Thank you for being engaged, and appreciate your time.
Yes,
See you in a
thank you so
couple
much.
weeks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You were supposed to eat a
All right,
big
Russ,
late.
stop glaring at us from back of the room. Instead of listening.
I had oatmeal for breakfast and that's it.
Yeah, but I ate a late lunch.
I think air conditioning is gone.
I know, I'm up here sweating. I don't know why, because all the people aren't yelling at me anymore, so I don't know why I'm sweating now. It's like hot right now.
It's the aftermath.
My watch literally in the middle of all those comments told me to go for a walk.
All right, let's let Russ talk.
Yep, go Russ.
He's ready.
So quick.
Go Russ.
This is a code amendment to the zoning ordinance. The application was submitted by Mike Desimoni, and it was based on 2 conversations. The first part is the gateway overlay zone. So this is the south gateway as folks enter into town. And this section of zoning code was based on the South Gateway Plan, which was adopted about 10 years ago now. And the concept of this plan is there's traffic lights, and around those traffic lights there will be different development patterns. It's called nodal commercial, so it's tighter, more compact. This adds
No drive-throughs?
a fourth, no drive-throughs. This adds a fourth node to the Park Avenue 1700 South intersection. There's already a signal there. This was an oversight. It should have been in this section before because...
Is this where that residential school is?
Yeah.
Volunteers?
It's where the Logan River Academy and Solid.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Just-
And then, is that city property to the northeast there?
No, that is, well, to the northeast, so it's on a diagonal.
Right, but
the northeast is
across-
Karchner.
Right, but across to the
No,
north of
that's
that.
privately owned.
Northwest is privately owned.
Northwest is the Logan River
We
Academy.
paid him rent.
So it's this intersection right
No,
here.
that's southwest.
Yeah, to the southwest is Logan River Academy. The southeast is Olligers. To the south, to the east, southeast is.
You said
It's
southeast twice.
Karchner's. I'm talking
And
about
north is.
bordering the Riverwalk.
There's
Yeah,
one vacant
northwest.
parcel on the
Okay, it's not owned by the city.
Yeah, that we
And it
paid
is
rent to,
privately
stuff
owned.
to stage, remember? Didn't we pay him rent? to
This
stage?
would allow smaller setbacks
Oh, okay.
on that property.
I didn't realize that was.
So the gateway is currently at a 100-foot setback. The nodes are all at 50. And this code amendment would bring that intersection in line with the other 3, so that they are all 50-foot setbacks at the intersection rather than 100-foot. So a little bit tighter. That's the first
I know
section.
we've had a couple of projects come for that piece of property that have never been able to be
We
built.
haven't had any formal proposals for that piece of property.
Oh, really?
Just napkins.
There's the river on the one side, which is also an enhanced setback too.
Oh, okay.
The second part of this is a result of the special events committee that the city has, and several special event vendors that would like more signage opportunities associated with a special event. Right now, all signage associated with a special event has to be on the same property as the special event. This proposal expands that to off-site, but it limits it to only 7 days. And what this says is a maximum of 8 temporary signs and 2 banners may be placed per special event. So that could be up
Citywide.
Yes, that could be up to 10 signs citywide for 7 days before the event.
Okay.
And a temporary sign is something that you'll see like in a yard. It's a smaller yard sign. These are 4 feet. A banner might be either one of these options that you see right here. It's either hung up on the wall of a building, or it's these feather freestanding banners.
But not a banner between 2 metal poles stuck into a yard.
We do
It has
not
to be
allow
on building. It has
Yeah,
to
we
be
do
on
not
building.
allow banners between posts or trees. It has to be flush mounted or the feather option.
Okay.
And it has to still comply with it has to be in the yard, not in the park strip kind of stuff.
Correct. Not allowed in the park strip. What else? There's only one per property, so you can put all 8 on one property, only 4 per street. And again,
Is that
only
street
7
defined?
days.
Sorry, is that street defined as, I mean, if you're like, I have them on Main Street, or is it like,
Before.
or is it like one block of that street, or is it, what, like, how is street defined? That street?
As long as the street is.
Okay.
You could have up to 4 signs on that street for 7 days max.
I was wondering if there was like a planning expert definition of street that I was not familiar with. Got it.
And the yard sign is the same size as the campaign yard signs?
Yeah, they're 4 square feet
8 on Main Street.
and 4 feet tall. So 4 square feet, 4 feet tall. And that's an example there.
That's bigger than
4
our,
feet tall, that's bigger than our campaign signs.
that's
then.
way bigger
Yeah,
than
they-
our campaign signs.
Sorry, they are bigger.
4 feet above the ground.
Your campaign signs are 2, but they can be up to 4 feet tall. This one is bigger, but the same.
I thought we didn't allow the bigger
How it
campaign
can
No,
sign.
we don't. We don't allow bigger campaign signs. We only allow.
But this doesn't apply to
This is,
political
I'm
campaigns.
just trying to get a picture in my head. So they're bigger than a temporary sign for an event can be bigger than a campaign sign for an
twice the size.
election.
Yes.
Twice the size, okay. We just need to make sure people who are running for office understand that event signs are different than campaign signs, or Aaron's going to be having a lot more work.
Or you can change it if you want.
Yeah.
No, we changed it because of me and Tom.
No, I'm saying
No, we can
change
make this
this,
the
so
same
this
size.
would be smaller.
I see.
So you did.
I'm sort of thinking we should make them the same.
Same size is what I'm
Yeah.
asking.
The yard sign should be the same size.
Is there a reason to allow them double?
Visibility.
The way it was proposed by the committee.
This committee consists of
Mike.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's business licensing, it's fire, it's public works, it's police, there's a lot of different departments on
but
it.
it's city employees on this committee.
I'm okay with going the same size as campaign signs.
I think it should be the same
Yeah,
size.
I'm fine with
It's
that.
much
I
less
kind of
confusing.
agree, yeah.
Okay. If Mark can win a campaign on those tiny signs, then
I know.
Because
someone can
I
sell
think
tickets to the
we've already,
rodeo.
I know there's already been things like that where, like the Cancer Walk has a big sign and people are,
I can win that
you know,
campaign with
so it's
10.
probably easier to just always temporary yard signs have the same size.
Yeah, I think that's a really good
I
plan.
gotta teach you about it.
So do you want Russ to come back with a different proposal, with changing that for the next meeting?
We can change it when we vote on
Yeah,
it.
I just didn't know if you wanted to amend it or if you wanted them to provide some alternate wording for you.
Can he not amend it and bring it back in 2 weeks? It would have to come back through.
No, I mean, you can amend it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all
you can
good.
amend it, I can change it to match campaign signs.
Yeah,
Great.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
Welcome to America.
I think
More
that's pretty much an
restrictions.
agreement on that one. See, this took longer than you thought.
All right. The last one, you want me to go ahead with the last one?
yes, please.
I will handle
Good
that
day,
for
Rich,
Rich.
by the way.
You can see what all those budget adjustments are. The one of note is the $5 million from the EPA for the sewer, the water treatment did
Got
come
it.
through. So that is really good
Yes.
news because that was on pause for a few weeks and we were nervous about getting that money. So
Thank goodness.
again, we'll have a public hearing on it in 2 weeks, but if there's any questions, let me know.
So we actually got it?
Yep, we actually received it. It's wonderful. Are there any other considerations this evening?
I was gonna ask a question about, sorry. Now that we have an emergency management
Person?
manager. Do we have an emergency advisory board? And, or would we want to create one?
Mayor?
I'm sorry,
I think this is a good question. No, you're okay. I think this is a good
Emergency
question
Advisory Board, will we be creating one, or do you think we need one?
to go along with our
At this
emergency
point,
management.
I don't think so. I mean, I know the emergency manager, he's starting to plan meetings with the executive team quarterly. Again, I think it's more an internal thing, at least initially, so again, he's just getting up and running. If that changes, I'll let you know.
Okay. We are adjourned. I did it loud.
I know you did that on